Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at welcome sa parang special edition ng ating live stream tungkol sa karapatang pantao. Ngayong hapon po ay napaka-importante kasi ngayon pag-uusapan ang report ng Office of High Commissioner on Human Rights doon sa kalagayan ng karapatang pantao sa Pilipinas. At ngayong hapon po, papanoorin natin ang kanilang talakayan na live na mangyayari sa Geneva, Switzerland. Alas 10 po ng umaga ngayon doon at alas 4 dito sa atin. Tatalakayin po nila yung report na yon at magsasalita ang iba't ibang mga officials ng High Commission, ng Office of High Commissioner, ng Human Rights Council. Meron din pong representative ang ating pamahalaan ng government po natin. Meron din pong representative ang Commission on Human Rights, ang ating mga legal lawyers, mga legal groups dito, at iba-iba pang mga NGOs. Kaya tatalakayin nila, magsasagutan sila, at inaasahan natin na maiintindihan pa natin lalo kung ano ba yung nakalagay dun sa report at ano dapat ang ating gawin para mag-improve naman, no? o umayos yung kalagayan ng pangkarapatang pantao sa Pilipinas. Ngayong hapon po, medyo marami-rami kaming magkukwentuhan. Pero maya-maya pa po yung kwentuhan. Ngayon ay magba-backgrounder tayo. Magpapakilala ng iba nating mga kasamang nandito na ngayon. Pero mamaya po ay meron pang ilang mga papasok sa ating live stream. So pwede ko pong maikling ipakilala ang ating mga kasama ngayon dito. Unahin na po natin yung pinakabata. No, hulaan niya sino pinakabata. Nangiti agad si Father. Pero mas matanda pa yata ako kay Father. Father Toots, pakilala ka po, please. Father, naka-mute ka yata.
Okay. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Good afternoon, everyone. Sa lahat ng mga tumatangkilik sa karapatang pantao, tumatangkilik lalo-lalo na yung mga human rights defenders at saka mga mamamayan, no, na naniniwala na ang karapatang pantao ay integral sa pagiging tao natin. Ako po si Father Christian Buenafe ng Order of Carmelites. Ako po ang chair ngayon ng Task Force Detainees of the Philippines. We were founded in 1974. After 46 years, still, isang mission partner kami ng AMRSP or the Association of Major Religious Superiors in the Philippines. Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Okay. Salamat. At nakalimutan banggitin ni Father na siya ngayon ay nasa kaisa-isang ECQ area sa Pilipinas. Tama ba? Ang Cebu City?
Opo.
Oo.
Cebu!
Okay. Sige po. Punta naman tayo sa CSO tapos CHR. O sige, pakinggan naman po natin. Hanggang ngayon, amaze ako sa pangalan niya kasi favorite ko yung soda na yon. So, pabayaan po natin magpakilala si Attorney ng Commission on Human Rights Policy Office.
Ay, hello po. Ako po si Rootbeer ng Policy Office ng Commission on Human Rights. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Okay, salamat.
Magandang hapon.
Sige po.
Hindi ko pa rin mawala sa isip ko yung kanyang pangalang Rootbeer. At pakinggan naman natin ngayon. Meron po tayong imported taga Bangkok, Philippine. Iniwanan niya tayo dito para mas malawak na scope ng karapatang pantao ang kanyang matulungan. No? Dati po namin siyang kasama sa Philippine Human Rights Information Center at ngayon siya ang in charge specifically sa Philippines, pero siya po ay nasa Southeast Asia ng Forum Asia. Joy?
Magandang hapon po. Joy Icayan po mula sa East Asia ASEAN program ng Forum Asia. So, looking forward sa discussion. Salamat, Ate Rose.
Thank you, Joy. At salamat po sa Forum Asia. Alam nyo, dahil ang galing-galing natin sa Pilipinas, napakahina ng ating internet connection. Nag-request po tayo sa Forum Asia na yung live stream ng ating ng UN ngayon from UN TV web manggagaling po sa Thailand ang streaming kasi mas maganda sa kanila yung mas malinaw sa kanila at mas sigurado yung connection. Pero meron pong nag-feedback sa atin. Meron po bang mga nakabukas na or naka-on yung inyong mga ringer sa inyong mga cellphone? Paki-close lang po at paki-mute ang ating yan. Salamat. Okay. So balik tayo sa Pilipinas ulit, sa Commission on Human Rights. Ang isa sa pinakabata, no? na president ng policy office.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Rose. Sorry, you're going to see my mom in the background. This is Marizen Santos po from the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines. Maraming salamat po sa imbitasyon. At kami po ay makikilahok sa discussion. That's my mom, by the way. Yeah.
Hello, Mommy. Sige. Okay. Kasama din po naman natin ang isa sa mga matatapang na human rights defenders natin at nangunguna, no, doon sa pag-aaruga sa ating mga batang naging biktima ng karahasan. Siguro pwede rin ikwento niya ng maikli ano yung nangyari sa Geneva kahapon, no? Yung paglulunsad ng kanilang napakagandang publication. Sige, Weng.
Hi, magandang hapon po. Ako po si Weng sa Children's Legal Rights and Development Center. Kami po yung nag-submit ng yung latest na report dun sa children killed in the war on drugs. At kahapon po ay nilaunch namin yung report together with our partner, the World Organization Against Torture. At yung sa amin lamang po kasi kung maalala nyo, ngayon po ay nag-mark yung pinaka-official 4th year, no, ng administration ni President Duterte. And for the parents na who lost their children in the anti-drug campaign, ito po ay ilang taon din, no? It will be years of agony and pain, and without any closure, neither justice and healing, no, that the families, yung parents hinahanap, no. So it's going to be 4 years of oblivion as justice remains elusive nga po dun sa mga families ng children, no. Kasi marami pong mga narratives kung paano sila napatay, no? May sinasabing nanlaban din sila. So, yung report po na nilaunch namin kahapon ay it aims to give really, no, yung faces dun sa narrative ng children killed in this brutal war on drugs, no? At yung numbers presented dun sa report ay should not be treated as statistics kasi ito pong mga batang to ay they were full of dreams when their lives were shattered, and it's high time, no, panahon na para bigyan ng mukha tong mga batang pinatay. At dito po ay makikita niyo yun sa report na pinablish namin, at sana yung Human Rights Council takes this matter seriously, na para sa kanilang report. Marami pong salamat.
Salamat, Weng. Siguro mamaya pwede mong ipakita at least yung cover ng publication, no? Para maging familiar sila doon sa inilabas na report ng OMCT at ng CLRD. Okay, kasama din po natin ang iniwanan ni General Simato sa Maynila. At sabihin nyo, taga-Enva yan, anong kinalaman yan sa karapatang pantao? Napakalaki po. Kaya pakinggan natin yung pagpapakilala ni Jaybee. Jaybee.
Magandang hapon, Ma'am Rose. Magandang hapon sa mga nasa panel. At sa lahat ng nanonood sa atin ngayong hapon. Ako si Jaybee Garganera mula sa Alyansa Tigil, Mina. Kabahagi kami ng Green Thumb Coalition or GTC. Mahalaga sa amin na makilahok sa mga usapin ng karapatang pantao. Ang Pilipinas kasi itinuturing na one of the deadliest countries to be an environmental activist or kaya land rights defenders. Isa yan sa consistent na pangit na record natin mula sa taunang report ng Global Witness. At misi kami sa Alyansa Tigil Mina, saksi kami sa maraming karahasan at marami sa hanay namin ang nag-alay na ng buhay para sa pangangalaga ng kalikasan. Lalo na nga lumalaban sa mapanirang pagmimina. So, nag-submit na rin kami sa iba't ibang UN mechanisms at bahagi kami ng mas malaking mga grupo na nakikipag-engage sa UN High Commissioner for the Human Rights at sa iba-iba pang usapin sa UN. At handa kami mag-ambag sa ating talakayan para mapatuloy natin na maisulong ang karapatang pantao. Kasama na yung karapatan natin sa isang malinis at maayos na kapaligiran.
Salamat JB, no? Nag-uumpisa na po actually yung session ngayon, pero yung para sa Pilipinas ay maya-maya pang mga 4:30 to 4:45 mag-start. Kaya doon tayo manonood po ng sabay-sabay. Kasama natin si Kelvin at saka si Tawan. They are our technical people helping us with our live stream. Ngayon, ipaubaya nyo po, magbibigay lang ako ng konting background tungkol dun sa, ano ba itong pag-uusapan natin ngayong hapon? Paano ba nag-come up ng ganito? At ano ba yung dapat nating asahan sa daloy ng Human Rights Council meeting ngayong araw na ito? Mag-share po ako ng maikling PowerPoint para makita lang natin ano ang inaasahan natin ngayon. Okay. Nakikita po ba?
Yes.
Yan. Okay. Salamat. So ito na po yung ating live stream ngayon. Pag-uusapan na maya-maya, no, yung report sa karapatang pantao sa Pilipinas. Kaya sama-sama natin itong panoorin. Maya-maya po ay makakasama at papasok sa ating talakayan si Commissioner Karen Gomez-Dumpit ng HCHR at ni Attorney Paolo Santiago na ngayon po ay nagbabantay na, no, sa kanilang mga Jitsi or Zoom siguro, no? Dahil sila po ay magbibigay ng kanilang live na intervention. Mapapakinggan po natin yon mamaya. So after nila magsalita doon, after noong talakayan ng Human Rights Council ay makakasama po natin si Attorney RP at saka si Commissioner Karen. Mamaya po ay makakasama din natin si Miss Judy Pasimio. May meeting lang siya ngayon pero mamaya ay papasok din siya. Okay, anong inaasahan natin? So ngayon po ay ongoing na yung opening ceremony or opening statement ng presidente ng Human Rights Council, no? Meron pong president ng Human Rights Council at iba pa po yung office, yung High Commissioner. At pag-uusapan po nila ngayon yung yearly report at ano yung update tungkol sa COVID, sa pandemic, no, na nangyayari sa buong mundo. Napaka-importante po nitong update na ito at dapat talaga naiintindihan ng UN, ng Human Rights Council, lalo na yung mga usapin ng karapatang pantao sa approaches, no, or responses ng bawat gobyerno sa buong bansa tungkol sa COVID. By 4:40 po ay magsasalita ang isang dignitary, si Miss Carrie Lam, Chief Executive ng Hong Kong. Karaniwan po, bawat Human Rights Council meeting ay pumipili sila ng magbibigay ng mga messages, lalo na yung merong mga importanteng nangyayari sa kanilang bansa. At alam natin naman sa Hong Kong, maaga pa, no? Wala pang COVID. Isa na sa kanilang struggle, ang simbolo ay ang paggamit ng maskara, ng mask, no? Ng face mask. Pero nakakatawa sa Hong Kong kasi po nung wala pang COVID at meron silang struggle, no? Or meron silang sinasabi sa kanilang pamahalaan na alisin yung isang batas na makakapagsiil sa kanilang karapatan, nakamask yung mga bata, yung mga nagrarally sa labas kasi nga hinuhuli sila, dinadampot sila para hindi sila masyado makilala, nagmamask ang mga rallyista at mga nakikibaka para sa karapatang pantao sa Hong Kong. So ngayon po, lahat na, buong mundo na ay gumagamit ng face mask. Okay. 4:45 to 6:45. Ito na po yung ating hihintayin at papanoorin ng sama-sama. Enhanced Interactive Dialogue on Human Rights Situation ng Pilipinas. So, ibig po sabihin nito ay mayroong mga pagtalakay. Mamaya po, pasadahan na natin kung paano mangyayari ito. At may pansinin nyo, 2 oras ang pagtalakay, no, sa kalagayan sa Pilipinas. Kasi po ay medyo mahaba-haba, no, at komprehensibo yung ginawang report ng Office of High Commissioner. By 6:45 to 7, maikling dialogue naman po tungkol sa kalagayan ng karapatang pantao ng mga Rohingya. Ito po yung matagal ng issue, no? Itong mga Rohingya people, mga indigenous people po ito ng Myanmar, na sila po ay dinisplace, no? At maraming mga namatay hanggang ngayon ay problema pa ang kanilang kalagayan. Okay, so anong mangyayari doon sa interactive dialogue sa Pilipinas? So nasabi nga natin, mahaba-haba po yung report, ilang pages yon, pero ipapakita yon or ipe-present ng High Commissioner in 5 to 7 minutes.
Miss Rose, excuse me po, naka-tile view po tayo.
Ha?
Naka-tile view po tayo, hindi po naka-full view.
Sorry, kanina pa pala ako nagsasalita, naka-tile view pala ako. Pasensya po. Paano ang daloy? Yan. So in 5 to 7 minutes, babanggitin ng High Commissioner yung summary ng report. Itong report po na ito ay lumabas matagal na, no? Very early ng January, nakatanggap na po tayo at ang lahat ng bansa ng report tungkol sa Pilipinas. Pagkaraan po niyan ay sasagot ang ating Justice Secretary. Ito po si Secretary Guevara. Tama? Minardo Guevara ba siya? Pagkatapos po niyan, mayroong mga panelists. Dalawa lang po ang kilala namin sa panelists, katulad ng binanggit ko kanina, si Karen Dumpit at saka si Atty. RP. Hindi rin po natin alam kung kailan yung part nila dyan. Pagkaraan po ng mga panelists ay magsasalita ang mga members at observers ng Human Rights Council. Excuse me. Meron pong around 56 members state ang Human Rights Council. Sana tama ako, Marizen. At merong ilang mga observers. Ito pong mga observers na ito ay mga bansa din po ito na membro ng United Nations, pero siyempre yung iba dyan gusto rin maging membro ng Human Rights Council. 1.5 minutes lang po ang kanilang pagsasalita. At hindi po natin alam kung ilan yung nakalista. Priority po kasi sila na magsalita para sa isang interactive dialogue. Pagkaraan po niyan, mga NGOs naman, 15 minuto lang po ang inalat. Pero napakarami po nang nagpapirma. 29 na NGOs, INGOs, ito po yung mga merong ECOSOC status. Pati po tayo sana sa pamamagitan ng fine, pero hindi na tayo nakaabot dahil ang dami niyang nagpalista. Pero ganyang 15 minuto lang po at 1.5 minutes, malamang po ay 10 NGO lamang ang makakapag oral intervention. Pagkaraan po niyan ay meron uling response ang dalawa pang panelist. Susundan po ito ng sagot ng minister or ambassador. So abangan po natin kung sino magsasalita, kung si Secretary Locsin ng DFA or si Ambassador Evans, no? Ito po yung ambassador natin sa UN Geneva. At last po syempre, pagtatapos ay magsasalita uli ang High Commissioner. Okay? Ito po yung posibleng listahan ng mga NGOs na magsasalita, 10 lang. Although nabanggit ko kanina ay 29 sila. Yeah. Okay. Balik muna ako sa mga kwentuhan natin. Maya-maya siguro natin uli pag-usapan, ano bang background? Or baka sinong gustong magkwento, ano ang background nitong report na ito? Miss Marizen, gusto mong ikwento anong background ng report?
Sure po. Should I open the video? I'll open the video.
Yes, please open.
And thank you, Ms. Rose, for the background of the current Human Rights Council session. So for the HCHR report, it stems from the it's not just the current human rights situation, but the entire human rights situation in the country. So we have to clarify that it doesn't just cover the current government, the administration, but also the human rights situation that's occurring, that has been compounded or that has acutely persisted through the years. But there was growing and highly escalating human rights situations and violations that prompted the Human Rights Council and mandated the High Commissioner for Human Rights to do an extensive report on the human rights situation in the country. So they have received, and also you can see that in the OHCHR report released last June 4, about 700 or 800 submissions. And also they have interviewed the government, and the government has engaged in dialogues with the OHCHR officials focusing on drafting the report. So the Human Rights Council, I think in the 41st session, so that was a year ago, this is an Iceland-led resolution. Iceland was part of the Human Rights Council last year. They filled in the position of the United States when the United States left the Human Rights Council. And so this Iceland-backed resolution was supported by the other council members. I think the votes were 18. And since then, after the adoption of the resolution, OHCHR had started its documentation and collecting information on the report. And they have considered a lot of information, cross-reference, tabulated to check for accuracy and truth in the information provided, and also the cases, which are very central as well for the OHCHR to come up with their findings and recommendations. Yeah, I guess that's the overview of what led us here. Yeah, mainly that. If you have other questions or inputs.
Okay, salamat Marizen. Ang sabi nga natin, itong Human Rights Council report na ito, Office of High Commissioner report na ito, ay komprehensibo, no? Tumalakay siya ng 4 na themes, thematic concern, at ito rin po yung ating dinidiscuss doon sa mga live stream na ginagawa ng PARA at ng iDEFEND. Baka meron pang gusto magbanggit sa inyo dyan tungkol sa kaalaman ninyo tungkol dun sa Human Rights Report. Nakita nyo na ba? Nabasa nyo na ba, mga kapatid? Sino yung gustong unang magbigay ng ilang mga background, ilang mga pagtingin bago bago mag-umpisa yung deliberation? Father Toots, meron kang gustong sabihin? Father, microphone please.
Okay, thank you, Miss Rose. Siguro nakatulong din yung pag-submit ng mga CSOs, mga human rights groups sa mga UN mechanisms, sa mga special rapporteurs. I think for the past years, you have been submitting documents sa mga different UN bodies and special rapporteurs. And in fact, I think last year, they came up with a joint statement and really calling for an intervention, especially sa mga rising human rights violations. And salamat din kasi ang ating mga international partners, hindi lang sa Geneva, pero sa iba't ibang lugar ng mundo, na talagang sinasabi na, hey, we have to look into the Philippines because hindi na makontrol yung violations, in fact, yung killings na lang. Matandaan ko, I think Miss Rose and some others, nakasama din tayo sa paglabi, pakikipag-usap ng PARA, iDEFEND, TFDP, at lahat ng mga international partners natin, ng AMRSP din. Isang side event, tinanong ako, no? So what's new? So sabi nga ni Miss Rose, what would you want to know? Would you like to have more dead bodies, or is this a number game? Kaya kailangan talagang busisiin. Kaya salamat talaga at ang Iceland at yung ibang bansa talagang concerned sila sa ating human rights situations. Kaya naipasa sa Human Rights Council last year sa 41st session, I think. So na ang Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights ay gagawa ng kanyang report. Kaya maganda nung binasa natin yung report, substantial yung documents, yung data, no, from the government, from the CSOs, testimonies, videos. So hindi lang siya one-sided. Kaya nakakatuwa kasi, in a way, talagang maganda yung report ng Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, na sana ngayon ay paharapin ng gobyerno, no, kung ano ang dapat sagot, no, hindi i-deny sana, kundi seryoso ito talaga na usapin na pangkarapatang pantao. Kaya kung ano man naabot natin ngayon, dahil din sa mga pagsisikap at pagpupunyagi ng mga human rights defenders, at we are doing this also for the victims, no? Yung mga biktima talaga ng karahasan, especially yung pagdating ng mga patay, no? Kaya the right to life is the ultimate. Kasi anong gagawin mo sa right of property, right of security, right of due process kung ang buhay ay nawala? Kaya yung mga children ni-report ni Miss Rowena, yung walang kamuwang-muwang, naging biktima sila sa giyera, no? So hindi sila pwedeng numbers lang or statistical report, kasi they are children with dreams, with faces, with names, pati yung mga biktima ng EJ case. Kaya parang kasama kami ni Miss Rose sa Geneva last year, talagang makikita mo yung concern ng international community tungkol sa usaping karapatang pantao. Iyon ang dagdag ko sa ngayon. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Kasama na rin po pala natin ngayon si Judy at saka si Attorney Gemma ng HCHR. Judy, nandiyan ka na? Judy Pasimio. Magpakita ang mga kagandahan. Yan.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ako
Okay.
po si Judy Pasimio mula sa Lilac at iDEFEND.
Okay. At ang isa po sa focus ng advocacy nila Judy ay tungkol sa indigenous people, no? At
Opo.
yan po ay isang malaking parte ng report. Kaya maya-maya ay pag-uusapan din natin yan.
Opo.
Kasama din po natin si Attorney Gemma Paruhinog. Attorney Gemma, saan ka? Paki-open po ang camera, Attorney Gemma.
Sandali.
Yan, sige po.
Ayaw bumukas yung
Ay.
camera. Ayaw bumukas yung camera para babatiin ko kayo ng magandang hapon. Hindi ko alam. Wait. Ito na. Hello?
Oh, wala pa rin po, Attorney Gemma.
Ayan. Magandang
Ayan.
sa inyong lahat. Join ako kahit late. Pasensya na.
At nasisira ang signal.
Yun lang po muna. Mamaya makakasama niyo po ako sa Putikala.
Okay. Salamat, Attorney Gemma. Mukhang kailangan mong medyo ayusin yung iyong connection. Meron pa po bang akong na-miss? Wala pa naman, no? Kanina may binanggit na si Marizen tungkol doon sa ilang background. Pakita ko lang po, importante yung nawawala ang aking presentation. Bakit siya nawala? Meron po kasing posibleng tanong, meron bang, alam ba ng government natin, na konsulta ba ang ating gobyerno doon sa report na ginawa o yung office lang ng High Commissioner ang nag-imbento niyan, no? Hindi po. Katulad nga ng nabanggit kanina ni Marizen, teka po, kailangan ko siyang i-focus. Yan. Katulad ng nabanggit ni Marizen kanina, napakarami pong report na sinubmit, no? Pati po ang ating pamahalaan ay nag-provide, no, na ang substantial na mga written inputs, mga reports. At sila ay question, tinanong po sila ng Office of High Commissioner, merong set ng question na pinadala sa kanila at sinagot po ito nila ng buo, no? Pagkatapos po niyan ay inanalyze yung mga official data, mga dokumento galing sa gobyerno at NGO, kasama yung ating mga legislation, ano ba yung mga batas, ano yung mga policy guidelines, pati po mga dokumento ng korte, mga police reports, videos, photos, at iba-iba pang mga report na lumabas sa mga website. At nag-interview din po sila ng mga biktima, mga witnesses, kahit na sa malayo, no? Dahil inabot na tayo ng COVID. At meron po mga actual na talakayan, no, sa ating pamahalaan, at ito po ay naganap noong February 13 and 14 sa Bangkok. So nandun po ang representative ng ating government para kausapin yung team na gumagawa ng report. Nanghingi din po ng permiso ang Office of High Commissioner na makabisita sa Pilipinas. Siyempre, mas maganda yon. Sana yung actual na nandito sila. Kaya lang po ay hindi sila napayagan. No? At ang report po, sabi nga din ni Marizen kanina, medyo matagal. Mula 2015 ay inumpisahan na nila yung pagtingin doon sa ilang mga reports. Last na po na slide ito kasi maya-maya ay mag-uumpisa na. Nabanggit ko kanina, 4 po ang thematic concern ng report na ito. Yung letter A, human rights violation sa context ng kampanya against illegal drugs. Ito yung tinatawag natin war on drugs, no? So sinabi po ng report, mukhang meron talagang malawakan at sistematikong pagpatay. At yung usapin ng obligasyon sa pag-iimbestiga, nakita nila na parang kulang na kulang ang pag-iimbestiga at prosecution. tinalakay din po nila yung napakaraming mga naaresto dahil gumagamit ng droga at yung pagtaas ng congestion rate ng ating mga kulungan. Sabi po sa report, mahigit 200,000 ang nakulong dahil sa illegal drugs. At syempre, binigyan nila ng emphasis na ang usapin ng droga ay usapin at problemang pang-public health. Hindi po ito isang usapin lang ng krimen or ng peace and order. Ito po ay usapin ng kalusugan. Bakit ba nagda-drugs ang mga tao? At paano ba yung tamang treatment sa kanila o rehabilitation? Pinuna po ng report yung pangunguna ng mga kapulisan sa pag-rehabilitate ng mga alleged drug offenders. Okay? Ang pangalawa pong topic ay yung national security and civic space. Ito po yung usapin ng ano-ano ba yung mga batas para sa national security at yung matinding panggigipit, no, doon sa mga pinaghihinalaan, pinagsususpetsahang mga terorista. Wala pa po yung Anti-Terror Act, ay nararamdaman na po namin ang ganyang framework ng anti-terrorism ng pamahalaan. At ano yung impact nito sa civic space at doon sa ating mga NGO, sa ating mga human rights defenders. Ang pangatlong topic po ay sitwasyon ng mga indigenous peoples, farmers at internally displaced people. No? Dahil po doon sa usapin din ng counter-terrorism framework nila, napakarami pong mga lumad, mga katutubo na na-displace, nasarahan ng mga eskwelahan nila. Yan. At syempre, tinalakay din nila yung mga violations at abuses ng New People's Army. At panghuli po, ito yung incitement to hatred and violence na napansin po nila na yung napakaraming mga speeches ng presidente, ng mga authorities, tungkol sa pagpatay, tungkol sa pag-rape, at mga discriminatory remarks ay nakakapag-incite or nakakapag-encourage ng hatred at violence sa Pilipinas at syempre ito'y makakaapektong maigi, no, sa ating mga kultura. Okay, meron po bang gusto pang magdagdag ng konti, magsalita bago mag-uumpisa na maya-maya ang report on the Philippines? Baka merong gustong magsalita sa inyo, magsabi. Mga kapatid, kayo lahat, baka gusto nyo pong mag-open ng video. Si Joy. Ma'am, sa mic please.
Sorry. Yeah, just to add dun sa report, I think one of the most important findings was that dun sa extent ng human rights violations, merong widespread impunity. So that's actually why we are now pushing for an internal investigation. Kasi for the past 4 years, the government has proven that the domestic mechanisms are not working, and it's shown with the lack of accountability sa war on drugs and other violations. So we really need to push for an international investigation.
Salamat, Joy. Mamaya pag-usapan natin yung mga recommendations natin. Sige, si Judy.
Oo, mamaya naman mas pag-uusapan natin yung bawat section. No? Pero offhand, sana lang matalakay mamaya at may mga presentations from the NGOs nang may focus ng onte sa usapin sa kababaihan. Bagamat very extensive yung discussion sa war on drugs, may mga issue na napakatingkad din na sigurado akong na-report yon, sana lang na-pick up ng mas maayos. Yung kunyari, yung pumutok na kama o kulong o sex for freedom scheme, no? Lumabas na it's a persistent nakalakaraan noon pa, pero mas lalo palang tumindi ngayon at mas naging vulnerable ang mga kababaihan. Dahil kung noon daw ang kwento na especially ng Coalition Against Trafficking of Women, Asia Pacific, na sila yung nangalap talaga ng ng mga datos, yung mga kababaihan nun, kaya nilang tumanggi sa sex kung pinipuwersa sila ng mga kapulisan kasi kulong ang kapalit nun. Although noon hirap na humindi. Pero ngayon buhay na nila yung kapalit o buhay ng asawa nila o buhay ng anak nila. Kaya talagang matindi at agresibo ang pagtulak ng ganitong skema, kama o kulong o sex for freedom. At sa dami ng mga napatay, again, hindi na disaggregate ng sex disaggregated, pero sa bawat isang napatay na lalaki, ay mayroong naulilang nanay o dalaga, anak na babae, na talagang dun sila nagdidepende sa pinagkakakitaan na dagdag na nakita ng kanilang ama o asawa. Saan sila pupulutin ngayon? At yun yung pinakita nitong nakaraang 3 taon, naging vulnerable sila lalo din sa iba't ibang forma ng karahasan. So maganda sana may pagpapatingkad ano ang impact at ano yung mga subsequent violations na nararanasan ng kababaihan dahil dito malupit na war on drugs.
Salamat, Judy. Sana isa dun sa mga magsasalita na NGO ay mabanggit nga ang tungkol sa kababaihan. Totoo, medyo kapuna-puna, hindi talaga masyado na-focus dun ng report Siguro dahil sa lawak ng report. Pero katulad nga nabanggit natin, gusto natin ng mas malalimang investigasyon para mas masino pang maigi at mabusisi pa maigi ang mga naging biktima at yung impact nito sa lahat sa bawat sektor ng ating gobyerno. Okay, meron pa pong gustong magbahagi, magsalita ng konti bago mag-start ang interactive dialogue. Si Marizen, at after ni Marizen, ni Jaybee. Marizen?
Yeah. Hi, Ms. Rose. Thank you po. I think siguro at the international level, what happens after the report and then the Human Rights Council members, because we've also been discussing and also mapping the votes from last year and for this year, because if they're going to vote on something or they will decide on a resolution or the adoption of the report, we also have to focus on the council members. So this year we have 12 new members on top of the current council members that voted from last year. So maybe after the interactive dialogue, when Karen and Attorney RP join the online caucus, we can have a discussion, an elaboration on the council votes.
Oo. Sige. Salamat, Marizen. Yun yung importante doon. Anong magiging resulta, anong magiging resolution pagkatapos itong report na ito. Si Jaybee.
Salamat, Ms. Rose. I think yung gusto ko lang bahagi sa punto bago natin mapanood yung deliberation ay yung pagkabahala ng mga land rights defenders at mga environmental activists sa sitwasyong hinaharap ngayon ng Pilipinas, yung pinakadelikadong bansa. Kung ikaw ay aktivista para sa kalikasan, ang gusto kasi nating tanggalin sa mga paniniwala ngayon si Duterte ay isang environmentalist na presidente. Pangako niya noong kampanya at pinangako niya noong mga una niyang buwan. Pero maraming karahasan at maraming namatay sa hanay ng mga kalikasang grupo at land rights defenders. So, gusto ko na mabigyan sana ng pansin yan at kailangang mapanagot ang gobyerno sa ganitong kakulangan.
Okay. Salamat, Jaybee. Yun yung sinasabi nating relasyon, yung usapin ng kalagayan ng ating environment, kalikasan, at yung mga land rights defenders, mga environmental rights defenders natin. Sino ba makikinabang pagka gumaganda ang ating kapaligiran, kapag malusog ang ating kapaligiran, kundi tayong lahat, no? Pero kung pinapatay, hinaharas, tinatakot ang mga taong nagtatrabaho para dito, malaki talaga ang problema natin sa Pilipinas. Hindi lang ng specific na tao, kung hindi ang impact nito ay long-lasting. Kasi ang sinisira natin ay kapaligiran ng Pilipinas at in the end, kapaligiran ng buong mundo. Okay. Tawan, may we request that we start flashing now the live stream because we know the speech of Carrie Lam is about to finish. Tawan, we're ready. So mga kapatid, makinig na pong maigi ha. Mag-uumpisa na ang interactive dialogue para sa Pilipinas. Sige po. Sineset up na po yan ni Tawan, ang ating magaling at masipag na HRD from Thailand. Hello daw, Marizen, sabi ni Joseph Sisip.
Hello, Kuya Joseph.
Hello, Joseph!
Yan. Sandy S. Mejia sa Universal Healthcare, kasama dyan ang mga SSS at GSIS pension na. So, syempre, kasama yung usapin ng social protection para sa karapatang pantao. Joy, is Tawan now readying the video?
Yes po. Si Carrie Lam pa rin yung nagsasalita.
Okay, maybe we can start it.
Okay.
We have the film?
Okay, even if it's Carrie Lam.
Sige
po.
Thank you.
Alam din natin ang nangyayari sa Hong Kong.
Oo, alamin natin ang nangyayari sa Hong Kong.
Of the national security legislation, Hong Kong will ride out the political storm since last June and emerge stronger with stability restored. I and the Hong Kong SAR government are determined to capitalize on our strengths, harness the opportunities presented by our country's development, and provide Hong Kong people with brighter prospects. I urge the international community to respect our country's right to safeguard national security and Hong Kong people's aspirations for stability and harmony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now have a very short technical break and then start the enhanced interactive dialogue on the Philippines. Thank you.
Break din tayo.
Magbigay po tayo ng konting komentaryo, no? Dahil po nagkaroon kami ng pagkakataon ng makarating diyan sa Geneva, hindi yan po ang karaniwang venue ng meeting ng Human Rights Council. Mukhang ito lang po yata yung kanilang conference hall na merong kumpletong connectivity, tsaka mga website and communication equipment. Ang karaniwang kwarto po ng Human Rights Council ay yung pabilog, ang upuan, at merong mapa ng mundo sa kanilang ceiling. No? So, ibang kwarto po ang ginagamit nila ngayon. Nakakalungkot din po dahil sa COVID ay nalimitahan yung ating interaction sa Human Rights Council. Dati po ay nakakapunta tayo sa Geneva para direktang makausap ang mga estado. Ngayon po ay walang tinatanggap ang Geneva, no? Na mga bisita or mga foreigner sa Switzerland dahil nga sa pangambang magkaroon na naman ng mataas na outbreak sa Switzerland. O baka merong gustong magbigay ng komentaryo tungkol sa itsura ng Human Rights Council.
Additional, Miss Rose,
Sige po.
para sa information din ng karamihan, so itong United Nations ay binubuo ng maraming bansa, 193, 197, ganon. Nag-i-elect sila ng countries na bubuo ng Human Rights Council with a term of, may specific term sila. May president ng Human Rights Council, siya ang presider, meron siyang mga vice presidents. In the past, ang Philippines naging vice president din siya. So isa din siya umuupo doon sa front. So ang Human Rights Council ay isang arm din siya ng UN. Tapos yung Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, iba din siya. Ang ano ngayon, ang High Commissioner ngayon ay si Madam Bachelet, no? Tama ba?
Opo.
Michelle Bachelet. She was formerly the president of Chile. Tapos pagkatapos ng term niya, siguro kinuha siya o in-invite siya ng UN na maging High Commissioner. So babae po ang High Commissioner ngayon, si Madam Bachelet. Tapos kaya makikita niyo sa harapan, maraming nakaupo. Ang president or ang presider, may mga other officials, ganon. Tapos, kaya magtaka kayo, bakit hindi puno? Bakit hindi lahat upuan ay naupuan? May
Your
umuupo.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to take your seats again and we'll pursue.
Kasi po, ang iba hindi
We have
member ng Human
small
Rights Council.
technical
Yung iba
problem in
din
that
ay
we can't show
siguro
the list of
wala pang
speakers yet on the
representative. Yun
screen,
lang.
but I will announce 2 or 3 speakers ahead each time, and I hope that technicians will be able to sort it out very quickly. So as already announced, we start with the enhanced interactive dialogue on the situation of human rights in the Philippines, pursuant to Council Resolution 41/2, and it is my honor to welcome our distinguished presenters. Madame Michelle Bachelet, High Commissioner for Human Rights, His Excellency Mr. Menardo Guevara, Justice Secretary and Minister of the Republic of the Philippines, Mrs. Karen Lucia Gomez-Dumpit, Representative of the Commission on Human Rights of the Republic of the Philippines, and Mr. Ray Paolo Santiago, Executive Director of the Ateneo Human Rights Center at Ateneo de Manila University. High Commissioner, you have the floor. The list of speakers will close within 15 minutes.
Madam President, Excellencies, as requested by Resolution 41/2, I turn now to our report on the human rights situation in the Philippines. Let me begin by thanking the government for its cooperation, including written submissions and several meetings with my office in Bangkok and Geneva. Much of the material in the report is drawn from these official sources. We also received hundreds of submissions from organizations and individuals across the Philippines. However, my team was not granted access to the country in relation to the mandate. The findings of the report are very serious. Laws and policies to counter national security threats and illegal drugs have been crafted and implemented in ways that severely impact human rights. They have resulted in thousands of killings, arbitrary detentions, and the vilification of those who challenge the severe human rights violation. The report finds that more than 248 human rights defenders, lawyers, journalists, and trade unionists were killed between 2015 and 2019. This includes a large number of environmental and indigenous people rights defenders. Human rights defenders are routinely smeared as terrorists, enemies of the state, and even viruses akin to COVID-19. The recent passage of the new Anti-Terrorist Act heightens our concerns about the blurring of important distinctions between criticism, criminality, and terrorism. The law could have a further chilling effect on human rights and humanitarian work, hindering support to vulnerable and marginalized communities. So I would urge the President to refrain from signing the law and to initiate the broad-based consultation process to draft legislation that can effectively prevent and counter violent extremism, but which contains some safeguards to prevent its misuse against people engaged in peaceful criticism and advocacy. And of course, my office is ready to assist in such a review. The report also finds that serious human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings, have resulted from key policies driving the so-called war on drugs, an incitement to violence from the highest levels of government. The campaign against illegal drugs is being carried out without due regard for the rule of law, due process, and the human rights of people who may be using or selling drugs. The report finds that the killings have been widespread and systematic, and they are ongoing. We also found near total impunity, indicating an unwillingness by the state to hold to account perpetrators of extrajudicial killings. Families of the victims, understandably, feel powerless, with the odds firmly stacked against justice. Moreover, by senior government officials' own admission, the draconian campaign has been ineffective in reducing the supply of illicit drugs. While the Philippines have made some progress in the advancement of economic and social rights, indigenous peoples and farmers continue to be caught in a tug of war between powerful businesses and political interests. The army and non-state armed groups like the New People's Army, who are also responsible for abuses. Despite progressive legislation, the rights of indigenous people, the right to education, and to other basic economic and social rights remain elusive for many remote communities. Excellencies, the Philippines has been actively engaged with many UN human rights mechanisms over the years, and this report has built upon many of their recommendations. A senior human rights advisor has also been supporting the UN country team since 2014. Our office is ready to strengthen our constructive engagement on the basis of the report's recommendations. We have identified several areas for further cooperation with the government, including a strengthening domestic accountability mechanism, improving data gathering on alleged police violation, review of legislation and policies on drug control and terrorism, and help to bridge gaps between civil society and state authorities. I urge the Council to remain active and vigilant on the situation in the Philippines by mandating my office to continue monitoring and reporting, as well as through support for technical cooperation to implement the report's recommendations. The state has an obligation to conduct independent investigations into the grave violation we have documented. In the absence of clear and measurable outcomes from domestic mechanisms, the Council should consider options for international accountability measures. I hope the report will mark the beginning of the end of impunity for serious human rights violations in the Philippines. The families of victims and the country's courageous human rights defenders count on the international community for help to address these ongoing and serious human rights issues, and for the Council to rise up to its prevention mandate. It is not enough to argue that the government's heavy-handed policies remain popular in the country, because victims tend to be from lower socioeconomic classes and relatively disempowered communities. There is an even stronger imperative to ensure their protection. We must not let them down. Political leadership is about respecting, promoting, and protecting the rights of everyone in society, in particular the most vulnerable, so as to leave no one behind. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. And we will now watch a video message, starting with His Excellency Mr. Menardo Guevara.
Madam High Commissioner, Excellencies, good morning from Manila. Transparency and constructive cooperation characterize the Philippine engagement with the UN and the international community. This is no less true in the area of human rights. Human rights is a fundamental national interest, rooted in our recent history as the first country to use people power successfully to restore democracy by toppling a dictatorship notorious for human rights violations. Human rights anchor the agenda of the administration, which seeks to promote and uplift the dignity of all 110 million Filipinos. First and foremost of these rights is the safety, security, and well-being of the general public. This commitment has been firm and unwavering, more so now as the nation faces the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. An assessment of the human rights situation in the Philippines can only be credible when it is properly informed by context on the ground. Like many governments, we face problems that heavily bear upon efforts to improve the lives of our people and secure their future. These include drugs, corruption, criminality, and terrorism. We cherish our newly won hard-fought democracy, so we are deeply concerned about the inroads made by the drug trade in the subversion of democracies. Our democracy and legal institutions ensure that the national response to these problems, even the gravest of them aimed at democracy, are always within the law and in full respect of human rights. Excellencies, our President ran and won on a campaign promise of a drug-free Philippines, where our people are safe and their rights protected. The President has discharged this mandate faithfully. After 4 years, the President and his anti-drug campaign enjoy the strong and widespread support of our people. As a democracy, we must continue on a path that has the public's unflagging support. A monitoring mechanism called Real Numbers PH ensures public transparency and full accountability in this campaign. It accounts for and publishes evidence-based outcomes of the campaign across 42,046 villages across the country, as well as figures on law enforcement actions and drug-related cases in the courts. Our government has also conducted briefings and dialogues with the representatives of the diplomatic community in the Philippines on human rights issues of concern to them. The aim being to provide more transparency and better appreciation of such issues. Further briefings are planned. We have also established an interagency panel chaired by my office that is conducting a judicious review of the 5,655 anti-illegal drug operations where deaths occurred. The Philippine National Police is obliged by its internal mechanisms to conduct motu proprio investigations, whether or not there are complainants, on all law enforcement operations that result in deaths and take action on this basis. This review panel, external to the Philippine National Police, reevaluates these cases and examines the propriety of reinvestigating them or filing appropriate charges against erring law enforcement officers. The panel intends to engage affected families, provide them with legal options and assistance in criminal prosecution of law enforcers who have overstepped legal bounds in their operations. It will present a report on its work by the end of November of this year. This review mechanism will not only reinforce accountability on the drug campaign, it will tighten the web of existing mechanisms to prevent cases of impunity, including the Interagency Committee on Extralegal Killings and Forced Disappearances, Torture, and other grave violations to life, liberty, and security of persons. I chair this mechanism and have worked closely with the CHR and the university-based think tank to improve its institutional capabilities. And as with all human rights-related mechanisms in the country, the Commission on Human Rights will be involved in its capacity as an independent monitoring body. The continued unhampered functioning of the Philippine CHR underpins our strong position against calls for an independent investigative mechanism, including the one made before the International Criminal Court, from which we have withdrawn. Excellencies, claims that there is impunity or near impunity in the country find no anchor in a system that provides every avenue to examine, establish, and pursue a claim of wrongdoing by a state actor, if such claim is substantiated with facts. We take each case brought before our authorities with the diligence it deserves. In the same manner, we ask that the human rights mechanisms exercise due diligence in validating allegations brought before them by parties. The independence of our courts is affirmed by convictions of an Army general in 2018 and of members of a high-profile political family and police officials in 2019, and the indictment of a former police chief in January this year. Excellencies, the government has been sincere in fully engaging all stakeholders, the international community and the UN, including the OHCHR on human rights issues. We intend to broaden positive engagement with the UN system, including through an expanded cooperation framework and stronger platform of partnerships, which we are discussing with the UN Resident Coordinator in the Philippines. We are pursuing these directions in line with the government's determination to protect the public, shield democracy, and promote the human rights of every Filipino. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Mrs. Karen Lucia Gomez-Dumpit.
Madam President, distinguished members of the Human Rights Council, and the High Commissioner for Human Rights. As the world endures the impact of the pandemic, it is our privilege and duty to speak before you today. The Commission on Human Rights welcomes the report on the human rights situation in the Philippines. We consider government's engagement with the OHCHR as a sign of greater cooperation with independent mechanisms, and we acknowledge its response, but regret the public rejection of the conclusions and recommendations. We share the view that while the climate of impunity can be traced from the failure to fully address past human rights violations, present attitudes and behavior towards human rights have been conditioned by harmful rhetoric of inciting hatred, vilifying legitimate dissent, and incentivizing violence, allowing impunity to acutely persist today. There is a continuing obligation for the state to end impunity, pursue social justice, and uphold the dignity and human rights of all. Part of this obligation is to accept the report's findings and recommendations, continue to dialogue, take definitive steps to demonstrate the effectiveness of domestic mechanisms, and cooperate with other independent accountability mechanisms, including the special procedures. The over-reliance on a strong-arm approach has largely contributed to the pervading culture of impunity. To improve the human rights situation, the Philippines must change course, guided by the human rights-based approach to democratic governance. Government must translate these recommendations into concrete actions and establish a timeline to deliver results in the short and medium term. The CHR therefore recommends the following. Immediately halt the harmful rhetoric from the highest levels of authority. Communicate clear messages to frontliners who deliver the promotion and protection of human rights on the ground. Adopt a language in policy and practice respectful of democratic institutions and processes, including the media, for its role to inform and stimulate public debate. Allow full cooperation of the Philippine National Police, the Internal Affairs Service, and other government agencies with the CHR to enable investigations into human rights violations, including the killings that have plagued the anti-drug campaign. Enable accountability mechanisms to fulfill the rights to truth, access to justice, and effective remedies for all victims. Account and locate each and every killing and other human rights violations in the justice system. Provide effective protection for victims, whistleblowers, and witnesses, and prosecute all perpetrators. Provide direct and adequate assistance to all victims of the anti-drug campaign and families left behind. Accelerate the decongestion program to alleviate the condition of persons deprived of liberty. Guarantee transparency and report to CHR all incidents of deaths in custody. Revise the current legislative agenda to remove the reintroduction of the death penalty and the proposal to lower the minimum age of criminal responsibility. Establish the national preventive mechanism as the Commission is ready to accept the designation with civil society representatives and reconsider the enactment of the anti-terror bill to include stronger human rights safeguards. We ask the Human Rights Council and the international community to support the technical cooperation between the government and OHCHR. For OHCHR to have the mandate to continue to monitor and report progress on the recommendations, and in the absence of timely and measurable outcomes, to consider options for other international accountability measures. The Commission stands together with the victims, disadvantaged groups, and human rights defenders in valuing the Council as a fulcrum of international discourse and cooperation for the protection of all human rights. This has encouraged us to defend our shrinking civic space and respond to human rights attacks on the ground. Your sustained focus will continue to provide protection for human rights defenders, amplify the voices of the victims as it presents government with the opportunity to take proactive strides in responding to human rights concerns in the country. To forge constructive dialogue and collaboration at home, we respectfully ask the Human Rights Council for this opportunity to remain open. Mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. And the next video comes from Mr. Ray Paolo Santiago.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning to everyone. I am Ray Paolo Santiago, Executive Director of the Human Rights Center of Ateneo de Manila University, which has constructively engaged law and policy makers. We employ an evidence-based approach in the various initiatives we undertake. Thank you, Excellencies, for this opportunity to share. I will no longer highlight the positive points in the Philippine government's human rights situation submitted to this council. Suffice it to say, there has indeed been positive developments in terms of lawmaking, policy setting on paper, and even resolve of many government workers painstakingly trying to make the Philippines a better place to live in. My office has extensively worked with the government, and I can attest to the intent of many government workers to make the system work. But they are also constrained by political leaders. This is where the theoretical aspects meet the realities as outlined in the Philippine report of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The Philippines has a number of institutional challenges: structural inequality, weak institutions, political dynasties, and poor implementation of the law, to name a few. Weak institutions brought about by the Marcos dictatorship has damaged the check and balance mechanisms necessary for a democratic state. Its repair is where many technical assistance and aid have been focusing to strengthen our democratic institutions, including the justice pillar. The vast unequal distribution of wealth and power shows the structural inequality. Our Constitution devoted a whole portion on social justice and human rights due to these inequalities. The political landscape has also been dominated by political dynasties. Based on empirical studies, these political dynasties thrive from patronage politics by ensuring that constituencies remain disempowered. These weigh down on good governance, the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law, all of which are needed by a democratic state. The well-documented high incidence of warrantless arrests and killings in the more recent years show how due process of law has been stretched to the limit, if not eroded. Too wide discretion has been exercised by law enforcers. As we speak, the imminence of an anti-terrorism law hovers, giving wider discretion for warrantless arrests. There is distrust. How can you blame those who oppose these measures when the environment has been one that allows abuse, one with difficult chances of accountability for excesses? When those who exercise legitimate dissent are vilified to their detriment, legitimate dissent has been under attack. Even social media and traditional media outlets find themselves besieged with legal woes for being perceived as critical. The barriers to access to justice do not help our situation at all. But in any challenge, I believe matters should not be seen as insurmountable. Rather than attacks, this is an opportunity to improve a system that the Philippine government has admittedly been trying to address itself. To this Human Rights Council, I pray that the issues brought here not be decided based on quid pro quo arrangements. People's lives depend on you. An independent and transparent fact-finding mission will help the Philippine government in its own quest to build accountability and address impunity. The international community can assist the Philippine government rebuild its trust with the people one not merely based on popular support, but on its adherence on international human rights standards. I humbly recommend to the Philippine government to continue cooperating with international human rights mechanisms, but more closely this time. It must show its resolve to pursue honest-to-goodness accountability beyond the rhetoric. The Philippine government has demonstrated that it has the ability to do so, like in the case of the minor Kian de los Santos. It must provide for reparation and psychosocial intervention for victims. And finally, if there is political will to push for an anti-terrorism law, I hope that it also finds the political will to pass a human rights defenders law. I, together with my university, as well as with many other civil society groups, remain steadfast to work with our government in principled partnership. Thank you again, Your Excellencies.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to point out that the list of speakers has meanwhile been closed, and I now invite interested delegations to ask questions to the presenters and make comments on their statements, and we'll start with Finland on behalf of a group of countries.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Nordic countries, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and my own country, Finland. We share the High Commissioner's concern outlined in the report over killings committed in the context of so-called war on drugs, as well as that of human rights defenders, journalists, lawyers, and trade unionists. Indications that these violations are widespread, of a systematic character and on a large scale, are of a particular concern. Urgent steps must be taken to ensure full accountability. We reiterate our concerns regarding reports of ongoing threats to freedom of expression and media freedom, with legal charges and prosecutions being brought against journalists and senior politicians, critical of the government, as well as actions to shut down media outlets. The recent convictions of journalists Maria Ressa and Reynaldo Santos are particularly worrying. Madam President, as outlined in the report, the Philippines have taken important steps on universal access to tertiary education, access to health and protection of children in situations of armed conflict. We appreciate that they have presented further information on their approach and their efforts to address concerns outlined in the report. We encourage the government to deepen its cooperation with OHCHR to implement the recommendations outlined in the report and look forward to continuing our dialogue. I thank you.
Thank you very much, and I can see that the list of speakers still doesn't appear on all screens. So the next speakers will be the European Union, followed by Vietnam and then Liechtenstein.
Thank you, Madam President. The EU would like to thank the High Commissioner for a well-researched report. We are pleased that the government has cooperated, although the OHCHR did not receive permission to visit. The EU would like to reiterate our concern at the death toll and call for investigations of all cases. We also encourage the authorities to investigate harassment of human rights defenders, journalists, religious leaders, and indigenous people. The EU calls on the government to continue keeping the Philippines a country without death penalty and to review the Anti-Terrorism Act. We also urge the Philippines to uphold its commitments under the CRC. The report mentions the killing of 73 children. The youngest victim was only 5 years old. The conviction of Maria Ressa and Reynaldo Santos raises serious doubts over the respect for the rights to freedom of expression and the rule of law. The shutdown of ABS-CBN is another example. The EU is engaged with Philippines within the area of justice reform and is keen on discussing further, including on the first meeting of the Subcommittee on Good Governance, Rule of Law and Human Rights. Madam High Commissioner, your report recommends fostering trust with civil society organizations without reprisals. How can we support this work? Also, the report recommends considering options for international accountability in the absence of measurable domestic outcomes. What would be the sources for assessing the outcomes of all this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And the next speaker is Vietnam on behalf of ASEAN.
I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the ASEAN member states. We welcome efforts of the Philippines in providing information and discussing technical cooperation with the OCHA and its sharing of the Philippine human rights situation. We note the information provided on technical cooperation with international partners along with the NHRI and civil society, enhancement of the rule of law and national accountability mechanisms. We are pleased to note the Philippines' readiness to engage OCHA in further strengthening national mechanism on addressing extralegal killings, creating a monitoring system to document human rights violations among police force, and setting up a platform to facilitate the monitoring of the implementation of human rights recommendations. ASEAN underscores the work of the Council must uphold and assist the role of states as primary human rights duty bearers. Efforts must be exerted to encourage all parties to avail of and exhort domestic accountability processes. ASEAN underscores the role of the Council in delivering, through constructive dialogue and cooperation, concrete and meaningful human rights impact on the ground. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And I pass the floor to Liechtenstein.
Thank you, Madam President. Liechtenstein thanks the High Commissioner for her report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines. We are appalled by the widespread and systematic killings related to the drug campaign carried out by the security forces of the government of the Philippines. The report suggests that according to official data, 8,663 people, among which 73 children, the youngest at the age of only 5 months, have been killed since July 2016, estimating that up to a triple of that number might reflect the reality. The report also verifies that killings of at least 208 human rights defenders, journalists, trade unionists, including 30 women, for the period between January 2015 and December 2019. Liechtenstein appreciates the last week's appeal of 23 UN special mandate holders calling on the human rights to establish an international investigation into the human rights situation in the Philippines. In this regard, we would like to recall the ongoing investigation by the International Criminal Court into the situation in the Philippines. We express our regret that the Philippines have left the Rome Statute while having been investigated. This shows that the government of the Philippines does not undertake all possible efforts to protect and prevent its population from the most serious crimes and combat impunity for the killings of the past 5 years. For this reason, we call upon the Human Rights Council to appropriately react to this situation. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Ambassador. And the next speaker is Canada.
Thank you, Madam President. We thank the High Commissioner for her report. We're encouraged by the Philippines' openness to dialogue with the OHCHR, but regret that the High Commissioner was not invited to visit the Philippines in the course of its work. Canada is deeply concerned by the finding that drug campaign-related killings appear to be widespread and systematic in nature. We noted that some administrative measures have been imposed, including the dismissal of some police officers. However, misconduct and criminal action must also be addressed. Canada supports the report's call for prompt, impartial, thorough, and transparent investigations into all cases of death and alleged violations of human rights. We are also deeply troubled by the increasing criticism and intimidation of the press and the deliberate targeting of human rights defenders as well as journalists. In a democracy, human rights defenders and journalists must be able to do their work freely and without the fear of reprisal. Canada welcomes improvements in the protection of economic and social rights, such as agrarian reform, universal health care, and social assistance payments in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, and calls on the Philippines to continue its work towards full and meaningful social, economic, cultural, and civic participation of people in their communities. High Commissioner, your report has identified a particularly alarming climate for human rights defenders, journalists, and trade unionists. In your view, how can the international community support the government of Philippines to ensure that these vulnerable groups have access to effective legal remedies? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Ambassador. Next speaker is Belgium.
Thank you, Madam President. Belgium fully aligns itself with the statement of the European Union. Thank you, Madam High Commissioner, for your report. Belgium welcomes the engagement of the government of the Philippines with the Office of the High Commissioner in the preparation of this report. We call upon the government to continue cooperating with the High Commissioner and to allow OHCHR to enter the country. Belgium also invites the Philippines to respond positively to outstanding requests for visits of special procedures. Belgium is shocked by the credible allegations of widespread and systematic extrajudicial killings and arbitrary detentions in the context of the campaign against illegal drugs. We call on the Philippines to ensure prompt, independent, and credible investigations. Those responsible for human rights violations must be held accountable. Your findings on the lack of adequate human rights safeguards in the national security legislative framework, the phenomenon of red tagging, and the intimidating and sometimes even lethal impact thereof on civic space and on human rights defenders are equally of great concern. Belgium calls on the Philippines to uphold its international human rights obligations. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is the United Nations Children's Fund.
Thank you, Madam President. Children in the Philippines are indeed exposed to multiple risks and violations of their rights. During the lockdown, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children indicated an increase in online sexual exploitation and abuse reports by around 260% compared to the previous year. Children living in marginalized urban communities continue to be impacted by aggressive law enforcement in the context of the government's campaign against illegal substance abuse. The Philippines has one of the lowest age to determine statutory rape globally at 12 years old. Also, there has been recurrent attempts to lower the minimum age of criminal responsibility from 15 to 12 or even 9. Despite the promulgation of Republic Act 11188 on the special protection of children in situations of armed conflict in 2019, reports on grave violations against children, including recruitment, killing, maiming, and attacks on schools remain frequent. Moreover, the anticipated promulgation of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 risks to further jeopardize children's rights and make children more vulnerable to warrantless arrest and detention. In this context, we call on the government to bring its laws and practice in line with the Convention on the Right of the Child, and we stand ready to support. Furthermore, in line with our global call to release detained children amid the COVID-19 pandemic, we ask the government to facilitate the safe release of detained children, refrain from resorting to pretrial detention, and expand the provision of restorative alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is China.
Madam President, China has a positive assessment of Philippine government's efforts and achievements in promoting economic development, eliminating poverty, and ensuring people's human rights. We support Philippine government's law enforcement actions to fight drug crimes and maintain security and social order. China has always advocated dialogue and cooperation among parties to address differences in the field of human rights. We are against using country-specific resolutions to exercise pressure on member states. At the Council's 41st session, China voted against the resolution on the Philippines. In our view, the OHCHR should stick to the principles of impartiality and objectivity in its work, respect efforts made by member states to promote and protect human rights, attach importance to the authoritative information provided by the member states' government, do away with prejudice and prejudgment, and engage in constructive dialogue and cooperation with the member states' government. I thank you, Madam President.
Very much. I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Госпожа председатель.
Madam President, the consideration by the HRC of the Philippine issue is a clear example of politicization of the activities of the UN. This does not promote human rights in the world, and it discredits the Council itself. In the world, there are no states that are free from violations of human rights, but they must resolve the human rights issues themselves. The international community, meanwhile, must merely assist when it is requested and when there is consent. We welcome the Philippines' efforts and measures taken to improve the human rights situation, and it has informed in detail the Human Rights Council and other bodies on the progress. We cannot agree with the details in the report. The instructions addressed to the High Commissioner from last year's resolution does not stipulate objectivity or impartiality, and it notes that there should not be politicization of the activities of the UN. The report indicates and demonstrates how counterproductive it is to continue this approach, and we wish to end it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Thailand.
Aligns itself with the ASEAN joint statement and takes note of the High Commissioner's report. A human rights situation in every country is unique and in most cases very complex in itself. Thailand is pleased to see that the Philippines and the OHCHR are engaging in dialogue. We believe that constructive dialogue as well as the provision of technical cooperation are key to improve human rights situation and good governance in the country. We welcome the Philippines' efforts to uphold its human rights obligations, including the strengthening of national accountability mechanisms to address alleged human rights violations, the investment in legal and institutional mechanisms to prevent impunity, as well as the promotion of the role of the NHRI and people's participation to ensure transparency. Thailand finds it essential to tackle human rights challenges at their root causes, especially through the implementation of all recommendations from relevant human rights mechanisms. We also view that the consideration to establish any new international accountability mechanism must only come after the exhaustion of domestic mechanism and remedies. As a fellow ASEAN country, Thailand stands ready to work closely with the Philippines and relevant UN and regional human rights mechanisms where appropriate to continue to promote and protect human rights for all. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to Venezuela.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The Philippines engages in an open and honest dialogue with this council and its mechanisms. The government continues to strengthen its judiciary, which is a priority in the country, which cares for the safety, well-being, and rights of its people. We commend the dedication of its government to maintain objectivity as it investigates alleged human rights violations. The report, as it is presented, does not reflect the comprehensive information provided by Venezuela or its government, and it does not reflect its readiness to engage with the international community. The government of the Philippines supports human rights in its territory, and we will continue to support it in this direction with a view to achieving a concrete, positive and important impact on its people's well-being. Venezuela would like to reiterate the need for this council to fulfill its mandate of protecting and promoting human rights around the world, and particularly in affected countries, through genuine dialogue and cooperation, which are fundamental pillars of its work, without any form of imposition, politicization, selectivity or double standards. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Please.
السيد الرئيس اطلعت بعثة بلادي.
Thank you, Madam President. We took note of the report by the High Commissioner on the human rights situation in the Philippines. We commend the positive developments noted in the Philippines in recent years, including the adoption of laws aimed at strengthening human rights and the accession to 2 fundamental human rights instruments. Madam President, the issue of drugs is one of the greatest scourges in the world, and not just in the Philippines. It affects families, societies, and security in the long term. Moreover, drugs lead to greater criminality and organized crime. It also has an impact on the dismantling of societies and the crumbling of families. It is important to tackle this scourge at the international level. We need to tackle several factors in this respect. For instance, efforts must be made to halt the trafficking of prohibited substances, a form of trafficking that is made ever easier thanks to modern technologies. The reports that have been prepared, Madam President, should be based on reliable and objective sources. It is essential to establish an open dialogue on the issues of human rights with the host country, for that is the country which shoulders the primary responsibility for human rights within its territory. Thank you. I give the floor to France. Madam President, Madam High Commissioner, we'd like to thank you for your report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines. We commend the cooperation of the Philippine authorities with your teams, and we encourage them to continue along these lines and to implement your recommendations. Moreover, my country does hope that the human rights dialogue institutions established in the framework of the EU-Philippines partnership be properly set up. France is concerned by the situation of human rights as described in the report. Several issues in particular catch our attention. First of all, however legitimate it might be, the fight against drug trafficking should not deprive citizens of their right to a fair trial, nor should it serve to justify impunity, which authors of extrajudicial executions have benefited from since 2016. My country calls on the Philippine authorities to prevent any further extrajudicial executions and to combat impunity for their perpetrators. Moreover, civil society is being curbed, and this is also very concerning. In particular, the legal proceedings against Maria Ressa and Renato Santos should take place in full independence and in full respect of the principles of the rule of law, including the rights to a defence. France recalls its commitment to the freedom of the press and freedom of expression around the world. High Commissioner, you recommend that the Philippine authorities should establish an internal investigation mechanisms to tackle impunity. How would you recommend that they ensure its independence and impartiality? Thank you. Kuwait has the floor.
سيدة الرئيسة طلع وفد
Madam President, we take note of the report presented by the High Commissioner. We have also looked at the situation of human rights in the Philippines. The efforts made by the country's government and the measures it has taken to re-establish peace and security within its borders have been noted as well. We also note the readiness of the Philippines government to work with all stakeholders, national and international partners, in order to tackle alleged human rights violations. The Philippines have submitted evidence and facts, and this is testimony of their goodwill to stop these violations. We call on the Council to further strengthen national human rights institutions and to not dismantle or compromise them. Kuwait commends the technical assistance activities or technical cooperation with international partners, in particular strengthening mechanisms aimed at preventing extrajudicial executions. We also commend the establishment of a crime index, and we encourage the Council to further cooperate with the country. Moreover, it is important to further engage in technical cooperation between the Council and the Philippines. Equally important is the maintenance of an open, transparent partnership with the United Nations, human rights mechanisms, and civil societies to ensure better respect for human rights. Thank you, Sri Lanka.
President, we note Philippines' constructive engagement with the UN human rights mechanisms, including the OHCHR, notwithstanding its opposition to the country-specific resolution adopted by this Council. Madam President, Sri Lanka highlights that any action in the promotion and protection of human rights of a country should have the consent of that country, based on the principles of cooperation and genuine dialogue, and on the principles of universality, impartiality, and non-selectivity, which govern the work of this Council, as stipulated in GA Resolution 65251 and the IB package. In this context, we believe that the UPR is the appropriate mechanism to address the human rights situation of all countries in a uniform, objective, and constructive engagement, where countries could meaningfully and effectively contribute to the promotion and protection of human rights without discrimination. Madam President, in conclusion, we encourage this Council to engage in a positive dialogue with the Philippines, giving due regard to the tangible developments on the ground, as well as the cooperation demonstrated by the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Syria.
Thank you, Madam President. My delegation takes note of the report on the situation in the Philippines. We also take note with appreciation the efforts deployed by the government of the Philippines to promote and protect the human rights of its citizens and to maintain the comprehensive economic growth in a peaceful and safe environment for its people, despite the challenges the Philippines faces, particularly in terms of combating drugs and maintaining stability and safety in the country against armed terrorist groups. We take note of the existing cooperation with international human rights mechanisms based on the commitments made by the Philippines. We reiterate our position that the Human Rights Council should be a forum for constructive dialogue and international cooperation to support states' efforts to build their capacity to promote and protect all human rights, including the right to development on equal basis and without discrimination, taking into account national and international challenges facing member states in this framework, and the particularities and the specificities of each state. We call upon not weakening the Council by subjecting it to certain visions and agendas that use the human rights for political objectives. SEER calls on the Council to review the unprecedented expansion of special mechanisms in light of the financial liquidity crisis facing the United Nations in order to strengthen the Council's efficiency. Thank you.
Very much. And the next speaker is Australia.
Thank you, Madam President. Australia thanks the High Commissioner for Human Rights for her report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines and welcomes engagement by the Government of the Philippines with the Office of the High Commissioner during the preparation of the report, including high-level engagement today through Justice Secretary Guevara. Australia also welcomes the High Commissioner's recognition of the Philippine government's efforts to improve the protection of economic and social rights. Australia acknowledges these efforts and notes the benefits in addressing systemic challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, by leaving no one behind with respect for human rights. Australia shares the High Commissioner's concerns of reports of extrajudicial killings and other serious human rights violations in the Philippines, including those affecting journalists, human rights defenders, those accused of using narcotics, lawyers and trade unionists, for which domestic mechanisms should ensure greater accountability. Today's announcement by Justice Secretary Guevara of a new mechanism is a very welcome development in this regard. Australia notes that the Philippines faces a significant threat from terrorists and will continue to work with the Philippines to ensure that its counter-terrorism legislation provides an appropriate framework for responding to this threat, consistent with its international obligations, including those relating to human rights. Australia welcomes the recommendations in the report with regard to cooperation with UN human rights mechanisms and the provision of technical assistance. We encourage the Philippines to continue engagement with OHCHR, and we remain committed to supporting and assisting the Philippines in this regard.
Thank you,
as it works to
Ambassador.
implement its.
Thank you. Next speaker on our list would be Spain, but is absent. So I give the floor to Iran.
Thank you, Madam President. We take note of the report of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on the situation of human rights in the Philippines and welcome the government's constructive engagement with the OHCHR. There is a need for OHCHR to have more transparency and objectivity in its methodology, especially in country reports, and to ensure the highest level of professionalism. We commend the Philippines' efforts to strengthen accountability mechanisms. The efforts by the government to ensure the right to health of the drug-affected populations are noteworthy. As a country that is neighboring one of the main sources of opium production and has long been facing the scourge of illicit drug trafficking, Iran understands very well the difficulties the Philippines has to deal with. The international community is expected to shoulder their responsibility and assist all countries that are fighting illicit drug trafficking. To conclude, we appreciate all the efforts by the Philippines to safeguard human rights and human dignity while countering illicit drug trafficking and abuse. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Jordan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السيدة الرئيسة يشكر وفد.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We would like to thank the High Commissioner for her report. We took note of it and that of the Philippines. A few comments. The Philippines have made significant progress in the field of human rights, especially as regards social, economic, and cultural rights. The government of the Philippines is deploying tireless efforts to tackle human rights violations, and it is doing so through national human rights mechanisms. The Philippines is working to strengthen its mechanisms for accountability and its judiciary. It cooperates with the High Commissioner's Office and the Council on many issues that are mentioned in the report. We encourage this dialogue. We hope it will be pursued and that it will lead to positive developments for the Philippines. To conclude, it is essential to ensure that the dialogue continues between the Council and countries concerned in order to uphold human rights far from politicization and selectivity. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente, Madame
President, High Commissioner, Luxembourg aligns itself with a statement by the EU. We thank the High Commissioner for her report, and we encourage the government of the Philippines to fully cooperate with the High Commissioner, the special mandate holders, and treaty bodies. My delegation is deeply concerned by the developments in the violence and the human rights violations that are appearing in the context of the fight against drug trafficking. We call for an end to extrajudicial killings, arbitrary detention, and other human rights violations that affect people who are suspected of drug trafficking or drug use. The use of special detention centers in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic is commendable, and we encourage the government to continue along these lines, and we believe that freedom of expression, both online and offline, are key parts of democracy. We are therefore concerned by the nefarious rhetoric used on official channels which could incite violence. We also condemn the recent arrests of Marizen and Rowena Santos. We encourage the Philippines to investigate murders of human rights activists, journalists, and other people engaged in this field. Thank you very much. I thank the Ambassador.
Guys, I made a mistake. I should have called Belarus 2 speakers earlier. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. We do not stop to draw the attention of the Council to the counterproductivity of taking decisions which do not facilitate the promotion of human rights in the field, but only postpone a possible realization of human rights. The same is true for the resolution on human rights in the Philippines, and which this interactive dialogue is taking place. We have read carefully the report of the High Commissioner on the human rights situation in the Philippines, and we will say briefly that we regret that significant resources and the time of the HCHR were spent on this. We do not consider this to be an obvious problem which the Human Rights Council should focus its time on. We note that the Philippines has provided information, and notably for the compilation of the report, not every country is ready to be so open given such a confrontational relationship. Belarus underscores once again the importance of reviewing human rights situations on the basis of a mutually respectful dialogue. The Philippines did not agree with the resolution adopted, and this is an important signal for us. It indicates, most importantly, that this is a useless and hopeless document. The consideration of the human rights should not continue by the Human Rights Council. Thank you.
Ambassador, and again, apologies. I now give the floor to Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam President. Indonesia associates itself with the statement of ASEAN. While we note the several challenges remain relating to the human rights situation in the Philippines, we welcome the Philippines' recent step to address these challenges. We take note the Philippines' constructive engagement and cooperation with HCHR as reflected in several rounds of exchanges this year. Further, my delegation welcomes efforts by the government of the Philippines in improving rule of law and accountability mechanism at the national level, among others, through the strengthening of human rights safeguard within its national legal framework. Indonesia wishes to encourage the Philippines to continue in taking steps to further improve human rights situation on the ground. In this regard, we support the efforts of the Philippines to explore relevant areas of technical cooperation and institutional capacity building at the international level. As a fellow members of ASEAN, Indonesia stands ready to continue working closely with the Philippines to further promote meaningful advancement in the field of human rights. Indonesia also calls upon the international community to continue its constructive cooperation with and assistance to the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and I give the floor to the Lao People's Democratic Republic.
Madam President, Madam High Commissioner, the Lao PDR allied itself with the ASEAN statement and expressed its sincere thanks to the High Commissioner for her report on the human rights situation in the Philippines. The Lao PDR takes note of the achievement made by the Philippines in the areas of human rights in the country, particularly through the economic and social inclusion policies with a view to reducing poverty, promoting social inclusion, and building stable conditions for sustained and inclusive economic growth. We are encouraged by the Philippines' continued engagement with the human rights mechanisms and treaty bodies to address claims or allegations of violation on the basis of facts. We also encourage the Council and the OHCHR to constructively engage with the Philippines and to support the government's ongoing efforts to further strengthen the rule of law and domestic accountability mechanisms so as to further protect the welfare and human rights of its people. Madam President, the Lao PDR would like to emphasize the importance of the principles of universality, impartiality, objectivity, non-selectivity, constructive international dialogue, and cooperation. These are core guiding principles ensuring effectiveness of the Human Rights Council. Therefore, they should be strictly observed. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Japan.
Japan takes note of the report of the High Commissioner. The international community should take a constructive approach to improve the human rights situation in the Philippines. On the situation of grave drug contamination in the Philippines, Japan highly values the strong commitment of the Philippines under the leadership of President Duterte to illegal drugs control as one of its highest priority issues, which is highly supported by the Philippine people. In this respect, Japan's position is as mentioned in our EOV last year at the 41st session of the Council. In this context, Japan expects that accountability be ensured in the Philippines' fight against illegal drugs. We appreciate the country's efforts in further strengthening various domestic accountability mechanisms in cooperation with the OHCHR in order to improve the human rights situation and enhance the rule of law. To bring about real improvement on the ground, Japan provides assistance to the Philippines, such as construction of rehabilitation facilities and formulation of drug addiction remedies. Japan takes note of the Philippine Human Rights Stationer. We also welcome the Philippines' continued dialogue with special rapporteurs and cooperation with stakeholders, including the EU. We expect the Philippines and the international community to continue constructive dialogues. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Et je donne la parole au Maroc.
I now give the floor to Morocco.
The Secretariat earlier that we withdrew from the list of speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next speaker is Cambodia.
Madam President, Madam High Commissioner, my delegation would like to associate ourselves with the statement of the ASEAN delivered earlier. Cambodia appreciates endeavors of the government of the Philippines to continue bettering the life of Filipino citizens and is pleased to note the vibrancy of the media freedom evidenced through the presence of thousands of media outlets as well as the open space for thousands of registered CSO in the national development. Cambodia further recognizes the determination and importance that the Philippines attaches to constructive engagement with stakeholders and international community, including OHCHR, in promoting and protecting human rights. This demonstrates the country's openness and good faith to constructive dialogues and cooperation with the human rights mechanisms. Madam President, it is imperative that the role of state as the primary human rights duty bearer be upheld and resisted, not denigrated. The best approach to address human rights issue is engagement. Therefore, all country mandates should be established consensually with consent and cooperation of the nation concerned. Otherwise, such mandates are counterproductive and deplete the Council resources. Lastly, Cambodia reiterates its principal positions that human rights issue agenda must be addressed through a genuine dialogue-based approach with non-confrontation, non-politicization, and non-selectivity, based on verified source of information, bearing in mind the national particularity of each country. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to Bahrain.
Thank you, Madam President. My delegation has reviewed with interest the report prepared by the High Commissioner on the situation of human rights in the Philippines. We would like to thank the High Commissioner for her continued efforts in the promotion of human rights worldwide, as well as the government of the Philippines for their cooperation with the Human Rights Council and its mechanisms. Madam President, the Kingdom of Bahrain commends the efforts deployed by the Philippines in the enhancement of the rule of law and domestic international accountability mechanisms. We pay tribute as well as to the efforts made by the government of the Philippines in combating terrorism and drug trafficking to ensure for its citizens a safe environment allowing them to enjoy their fundamental rights. Madam President, finally, my delegation encourages the government of the Philippines to enhance the cooperation with the international human rights mechanisms and the Office of the High Commissioner with the view to maintain a close collaboration between the two parties. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Iraq.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. إن المبدأ
Thank you, Madam President. The fundamental principle of human rights within the United Nations is that states need to shoulder the moral and legal responsibility for promoting their citizens' human rights. The Human Rights Council has a certain number of mechanisms which can assist states in doing so. But it should not exploit these mechanisms to political ends, because that would run counter to the spirit of the Council. On multiple occasions, we have reiterated how important it is to verify the sources of the information used in UN reports so as to avoid any partiality or selectivity. Moreover, it is important to take into account the information submitted by the states concerned themselves. Moreover, the same principles should apply to all states alike without discrimination when talking about the situation of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is New Zealand.
Madam President, New Zealand welcomes the Government of the Philippines' substantive engagement with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the preparation of this report. Firstly, New Zealand acknowledges the strong relationship between our two countries. We also recognise that the country faces a range of complex internal challenges, such as poverty, armed conflict, terrorism, and illegal drugs. However, responding to these challenges must be done in accordance with international human rights law. We are concerned by the report's findings that a heavy-handed focus on countering national security threats and illegal drugs has resulted in serious human rights violations. These include reports of extrajudicial killings and arbitrary detentions. New Zealand also continues to be concerned about the vilification, harassment, and killings of persons exercising their rights to freedom of expression, such as human rights defenders and journalists. We urge the Government of the Philippines to undertake effective, prompt, independent, and impartial investigations into all allegations of serious violations and abuses of international human rights law, and to hold perpetrators accountable. Finally, New Zealand would like to encourage the Government of the Philippines to cooperate with the United Nations system, including the Office of the High Commissioner, who is ready to constructively and concretely support the Philippines to promote and protect human rights. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President. The Kingdom of the Netherlands aligns itself with the EU statement. High Commissioner, we thank you for the thorough report, and we fully support your analysis and recommendations. We welcome the constructive approach of the Philippines today to discuss the report and its follow-up. Human Rights Council members ought to live up to the highest human rights standards. We acknowledge recent steps taken by the Philippines to improve the human rights situation in the country, notably the laws that were passed to advance human rights, including on universal access to tertiary education and healthcare and sexual harassment. However, we remain concerned about the continued extrajudicial killings related to the campaign against illegal drugs and the position of civic space, as also mentioned in the report. We therefore support the report's call to put an end to all extrajudicial killings and to empower an independent body to conduct prompt, impartial, and transparent investigations into all cases of death. We also encourage the Philippine authorities to investigate reports of harassment and killings of human rights defenders, lawyers, journalists, media workers, and religious leaders. High Commissioner, what role do you see for OHCHR in fostering the implementation of the report's recommendations? I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Lebanon.
السيدة الرئيسة يشكر
Madam President, Lebanon would like to thank the High Commissioner for her report on the human rights situation in the Philippines. In light of our excellent relations with the Philippines, we encourage the Philippines to continue its open and transparent cooperation with the international community on human rights, a cooperation which has been proven by the report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines. We encourage the Council to continue providing technical cooperation and assistance in the field of human rights, and we encourage the Philippines to continue its work along these lines too, and we urge the High Commissioner to continue supporting the Philippines and to further support it through all of the mechanisms, special procedures, and other mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Austria fully aligns itself with the statement by the European Union. We thank the High Commissioner for her report and welcome the openness of the Philippines to engage in a dialogue with OHCHR during the preparation thereof. Preventing attacks against journalists and combating impunity has long been one of the priority issues of the Austrian human rights policy. We welcome the Philippines' plan of action on the safety of journalists and the country's cooperation with UNESCO on this issue. At the same time, we remain very concerned about the High Commissioner's report indicating a pattern of intimidation of independent news sources. We are worried about what appear to be politically motivated charges against journalists, undermining the public's confidence in the rule of law. During the COVID-19 crisis, independent and plural media have proven indispensable for an effective management of public health and for increasing public trust in measures taken by the government. Madam High Commissioner, in your report, you mentioned ongoing efforts by the Philippine government to fight impunity for violent attacks against journalists, including by the Presidential Task Force on Media Security. What could, in your view, be done to enhance the effectiveness of these efforts? I thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Madam President. Azerbaijan welcomes information provided by the Philippines as a concerned country. We also take positive note of the documents circulated earlier by the Permanent Mission of the Philippines, which provided us with a comprehensive account of the human rights situation in the Philippines, including the country's human rights policies, mechanisms, and accomplishments. We note that the Philippines is a party to most of the international human rights instruments. In compliance with international obligations, the Philippines cooperates with the existing human rights mechanisms of the United Nations, and it's commendable that the Philippines is among the few countries that keep their treaty body reporting fully up to date. We acknowledge efforts by the government of the Philippines to address human rights violations within established domestic processes and to further strengthen accountability mechanisms. Azerbaijan believes that all outstanding issues should be considered within the spirit of cooperation and dialogue between the Philippines and the OHCHR. To conclude, we reiterate our conviction that selective adoption of country-specific resolutions is counterproductive and undermines principles of cooperation and genuine dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor back to Vietnam.
Madam President, Vietnam associates itself with the joint statement of the ASEAN. Vietnam strongly believes that the most productive way to enhance the promotion and protection of human rights among countries is through genuine dialogue and cooperation, and to uphold the principles of sovereignty and non-interference in internal affairs of states. We welcome the determination of the government of the Philippines to integrate the promotion and protection of human rights in the recent Vision 2040 and the Philippines Development Plan for 2017 and 2022, which signified the importance of the Philippines peoples in the process of national building. We also recognize the Philippines' engagement with the UN Human Rights Mechanism, as well as the country's active advocacies at the international level on youth, migrants, anti-trafficking in persons and climate change, and encourage the country to continue this constructive dialogue and cooperation in the future. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Switzerland.
Madame la Présidente,
Madam President, Switzerland thanks the High Commissioner for the presentation of her report on the human rights situation in the Philippines. It confirms concerns over extrajudicial executions conducted in the country in the fight against drugs. It underscores that these apparently have been systematized and widespread, even affecting minors and children. Switzerland recalls that it is essential that whenever people are killed following an intervention by the police, there should be an impartial, transparent investigation, and the courts should allow a fair trial in all circumstances. We call on the Philippines to intensify their cooperation with the High Commissioner for Human Rights and rapidly put in place each of the recommendations. The guaranteeing of the right of expression, protection of journalists, and human rights are all vital. Journalists and human rights advocates have also faced all kinds of intimidation and even extrajudicial killings. We support the efforts of Philippines against poverty, and we encourage the government to continue along this path. Madam High Commissioner, which data are still needed to establish the particular cases of extrajudicial killings in the Philippines? Thank you.
Who
Thank you.
is Iceland?
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to thank the High Commissioner and her office for the comprehensive report, as well as the other participants in today's insightful dialogue. Madam President, the report outlines a worrying human rights situation of widespread, systematic, and ongoing violations. Individuals are not only killed in the context of the so-called war on drugs, but OHCHR has verified the killings of over 200 human rights defenders, journalists, and trade unionists. The report referred to persistent impunity for human rights violations and notes that the practical obstacles of accessing justice within the country are almost insurmountable. Those that bring attention to the situation face legal challenges, with media networks losing the license to broadcast, and journalists such as Maria Ressa and Reynaldo Santos and senior politicians critical of the government such as Leila de Lima are subject to legal proceedings. These cases constitute a serious threat to freedom of expression and media freedom. Madam President, as the initiator of last year's resolution on the situation of human rights in the Philippines, we regret the initial reaction of the government to the resolution. On the other hand, we greatly appreciate the government's participation in today's dialogue. This dialogue with the Council and OHCHR is key in addressing the recommendations of the report, and we look forward to further engage with all stakeholders on the follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam President. The United Kingdom thanks the High Commissioner for her report and her work over the past year. The UK notes with concern the issues highlighted in the report, in particular the number of killings associated with the war on drugs, the treatment of human rights defenders and land rights activists, and the prison congestion rate. We urge the government of the Philippines to investigate all deaths related to the war on drugs and implement the recommendations in the High Commissioner's report. The UK remains strongly committed to supporting human rights defenders, land rights activists, and journalists, including in the Philippines. They should be able to operate without fear of reprisal. Madam High Commissioner, the United Kingdom welcomes the steps taken by the government of the Philippines to address the impunity for killings of journalists in the Amputian massacre case. The UK is concerned about the continuing cases against Rappler and its CEO, Maria Ressa, and notes the recent closure of ABS-CBN. What is your view on how to best protect freedom of expression in the Philippines? Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I give the floor to Ireland.
Madam President, Ireland aligns with the statement of the EU. Ireland thanks the High Commissioner for her detailed report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines and for the constructive recommendations set out therein. Ireland recognises the significant work undertaken by the government in recent years in securing and vindicating economic and social rights for its people. However, we are concerned by the findings of the High Commissioner, particularly the imposition of restrictions on freedom of expression and the media, highlighted by the prosecution of journalists Maria Ressa and Reinaldo Santos, and by elements of the draft anti-terror law. Freedom of opinion and expression, online and offline, are essential cornerstones of democracy. We urge the government to take swift action to ensure that the media and civil society, including human rights defenders, can freely carry out their work without interference. Ireland, along with the EU, remains committed to supporting the government in strengthening and reforming its justice sector and bolstering the rule of law, including through the Go Just programme. We encourage the government to cooperate with the Office of the High Commissioner and relevant special mandate holders to address the challenges identified in the report. Madam High Commissioner, your report also focuses on the serious human rights violations that have taken place as a result of the ongoing campaign against illegal drugs. How would you advise the international community to advocate for the merits and effectiveness of a human rights-based approach, given the deeply polarized views we have seen? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Myanmar.
Thank you, Madam President. Myanmar aligns itself with the ASEAN statement. Myanmar take note the report of the High Commissioner. Myanmar thanks the Philippines for sharing the Philippines human rights situation. It shows the sincerity and openness of the Philippines government, as well as highlights the need for the government report to be given due weight in assessing country-specific situations. Myanmar welcomes the tremendous effort of the government of the Philippines in protection and promotion of the human rights of its people, especially the vulnerable and disadvantaged groups. The existence of robust civil society and media space in the Philippines is attested to by the presence of 60,000 non-government organizations and around 2,200 private media outlets. Madam President, Myanmar praised the accomplishment of the Philippines government anti-illegal drug campaigns over the years and welcomed the concrete actions taken by the government to strengthen the functioning of the accountability mechanisms. We underscore the need of the OHCHR and the Council to fully support domestic mechanism and its process and refrain from externalizing accountability before exhaustion of the domestic procedures. It is important that OHCHR's country report should constitute the issues reflect the challenges on the ground, such as gravity of terrorism and the illegal drug problem that Philippines is encountering. It is also important that the work of the HRC is based on its core principle of universality, objectivity, impartiality, and non-selectivity. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, tiene la palabra Cuba.
Cuba has the floor. Thank you, Madam President. Cuba has always objected to selective approaches and initiatives against developing countries. Therefore, we did not support the resolution which gave a mandate for this interactive dialogue. Cuba reiterates its clear position concerning country-specific resolutions and the need to avoid politicization and selectivity in the Council's work. When the UPR was established, it opened up the possibility of promoting genuine international cooperation in the fields of human rights. And yet that is increasingly less present in other of the Council's mechanisms. We regret that this major agenda item continues to be plagued by specific exercises against developing countries instead of being dedicated to fruitful discussion on the work of the High Commissioner and her office. Madam President, we reiterate that cooperation and respectful dialogue should mark the work of the Council and should be the channel taken for tackling any concern in the field of human rights. Thank you very much. Thank you. Nicaragua has the floor. Thank you, Madam President. Nicaragua recognizes the goodwill of the Philippines and its commitment to engage in constructive dialogue with the international community and the UN mechanisms. We welcome the information shared by the Philippines concerning its involvement in various technical cooperation exercises on human rights and the rule of law. We invite Member States to take note of its efforts. Moreover, we also welcome the work done by the Philippines to strengthen the functioning of its accountability and justice mechanisms. We deplore that this report does not reflect the efforts that Philippines has made to protect and promote human rights for its people. This council needs to make sure that country reports are not used as a measure to undertake selective measures which go against the work of this council. It is important to engage in a constructive approach that respects the countries instead of promoting measures which do not help our countries establish lasting peace and security. Thank you very much.
Gracias. And this brings us to the end of the list of speakers on behalf of states. So we now pass to the list of speakers on behalf of NGOs. And we'll start with the World Organization Against Torture.
Thank you, Madam President. We welcome the report of the High Commissioner on the Philippines, shedding light on gross human rights violations perpetrated in the context of President Duterte's so-called war on drugs. Extrajudicial killings of children, particularly serious given children's heightened vulnerability, remain, however, underreported. In a research published this week, OMCT and its local partner documented 122 killings of children aged from 1 to 17 years old between July 2016 and December 2019. 38.5% of these killings were carried out by policemen as part of police operations, while 61% were executed by unknown individuals, some of them with direct links to the police. Only one of these crimes was genuinely investigated, prosecuted, and led to a conviction because it had been recorded on video. Our report identified 4 clear patterns, with children being killed either as direct targets, as proxies when the real targets could not be found, as a result of mistaken identities, or as so-called collateral damage, losing their lives to stray bullets during police operations. Killings continue, with at least another 7 children losing their lives since the beginning of 2020. We call on the government of the Philippines to immediately put an end to extrajudicial killings and call on the Council to act on the recommendation of the High Commissioner to establish an independent international investigation into allegations of gross human rights violations with a specific focus on those committed against children. Thank you.
Thank you. And I give the floor to the Asian Forum for Human Rights and Development.
Philippines. The Duterte administration has been characterized by widespread and systematic human rights violations in relation to the country's war on drugs. HCHR's findings confirm reports by civil society on the systematic nature of these violations and the impunity with which they have been committed. Instead of addressing these violations, the government has attempted to silence human rights defenders, civil society organizations, journalists, and critics through repressive laws, surveillance, attacks, and reprisals. It shut down the country's largest TV network. Maria Ressa, CEO of Rappler, which had reported on the killings, was convicted on a trumped-up cyber libel charge. The Congress fast-tracked an anti-terrorism bill which contains provisions that would effectively criminalize dissent. Its COVID-19 response mirrors its approach on the war on drugs, with the use of cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment and the repression of freedom of expression through a false information provision in the emergency decree. The domestic system has failed to provide accountability for the extrajudicial killings and other grave violations. The government has labeled as terrorists and encouraged violence against human rights defenders and activists calling for accountability. We echo the findings of the HCHR and note that these violations continue to be committed by the state. We echo the call of 31 special procedure mandates for an on-the-ground international investigation. The government's action have proven that it's unwilling and incapable of providing accountability. The Council must act on the recommendations of the High Commissioner and mandate an independent international investigation into human rights violations in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Human Rights Watch.
The High Commissioner's report on the Philippines provides a stark summary of the widespread and systematic rights violations ongoing in the country. Its findings on the murderous war on drugs, which has resulted in thousands of killings, are chilling, and there is much more, including extrajudicial killings of political activists, attacks on civic groups, assaults on media freedom and democratic space, and the government's failure to make any significant attempt to hold those responsible accountable. The report drives home the urgent need for the Council to take action for international accountability. About 100 children have died in the anti-drug campaign. Human Rights Watch recently reported on the broader impact of the drug war on children and their often impoverished families. We spoke to Jennifer, who tried to shield her unarmed father from the police who shot him dead in their house in 2016. The killing scarred Jennifer, then 12, leaving her unable to eat properly or stay in school. She still suffers nightmares of her father being gunned down with her helpless to protect him. There are too many Filipino children like Jennifer. President Duterte's drug war still rages, with killings reported daily. But rather than investigating crimes and bringing those responsible to justice, the administration harasses and jails critics and publicly encourages more killings. It has been 4 years this week since Duterte took office and unleashed this human rights catastrophe. UN member states should urgently take more robust action to address these serious violations. The Council has a responsibility to heed the recommendations by the High Commissioner and UN experts and create an independent, impartial investigation into the Philippines.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Franciscans International.
Madam President, this is a joint statement of Franciscans International, Swiss Catholic Lenten Fund, Task Force Detainees of the Philippines, an association of major religious superiors in the Philippines. We welcome the High Commissioner report on the human rights situation in the Philippines and support its recommendations. Since the adoption of the Council's resolution last year, the human rights situation in the Philippines has not improved. The unlawful killings and vilification of dissent still continue. In addition, the response of the government during the COVID-19 pandemic has strengthened the existing structural poverty and inequalities in the country. We also would like to draw the Council's attention on the current process for the adoption of anti-terrorism bill that seeks to amend the Human Security Act of 2007. The bill has a broad and vague definition of terrorism and terrorists and other problematic provisions for human rights and the rule of law. In particular, the broad definition can be used to stifle dissent and curtail the rights to freedom of opinion and expression, to freedom of peaceful assembly and of association. Finally, we urge the Council to adopt the High Commissioner's recommendation on accountability by establishing a commission of inquiry due to the failure of the domestic accountability mechanisms to address the ongoing human rights violations in the Philippines. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Amnesty International.
President, we thank the High Commissioner for her report, which paints a deeply concerning picture of continuing widespread and systematic extrajudicial executions fueled by a climate of near total impunity, despite increasing concern from the international community. This fits with our own conclusions, including that these ongoing killings amount to crimes against humanity. As the report makes clear, the near total impunity, as well as statements that amount to incitement to violence and discrimination from the very highest levels of government, continue to fuel the ongoing killings and other serious violations. We also share the High Commissioner's significant concerns over the increasing crackdown on civil society, the media, political opponents, and other government critics, including the continued arbitrary detention of Senator De Lima, the ongoing prosecution of journalist Maria Ressa, shutdown of ABS-CBN network, and the continued threats, arbitrary detention, and killings of human rights defenders and peaceful activists. Madam President, we regret the immediate response from the government that they cannot commit to the full implementation of the report's recommendations. At the same time, after the release of the report, the President repeated his call for people suspected of selling drugs to simply be killed. Having identified almost insurmountable barriers to justice and accountability at the national level, HCHR report concludes that independent, impartial, and effective investigations into the killings are critical and recommends that in the absence of clear and measurable outcomes from domestic mechanisms, the Council consider options for international accountability measures. We note that a group of special procedures also last week reiterated their call on the HRC to establish an independent, impartial investigation and urge Council to heed these calls. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Civicus.
Thank you, Madam President. Civicus and Karapitan welcome the strong report of the OHCHR. Yesterday, the Philippines was added to Civicus's watch list, reflecting its sharp decline in civic freedoms. President Duterte's government has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic by passing an emergency law used to curtail freedom of speech and silence the media. Journalists and social media users have already been targeted by it. Civicus member Karapitan is one of the many organizations threatened and smeared for their work, including for their reports to the UN. Reprisals are never acceptable, but even more egregious when perpetrated by a member of this council. The report shows that violations of human rights, including extrajudicial killings and arbitrary detention under Duterte's war on drugs, is pervasive. That vilification of dissent is becoming institutionalized and normalized in ways that will be very difficult to reverse. The new anti-terror bill will further erode the rule of law. Rampant impunity means that accountability for attacks against activists and journalists is virtually non-existent. Domestic mechanisms will not provide justice for the thousands killed at the hand of state authorities, for those unjustly imprisoned, for those silenced. We welcome the statements made during this interactive dialogue. We call on members of this council to follow up with action and deliver a strong resolution which delivers the accountability measures that are so urgently needed. and demonstrates that Council members are committed to upholding respect for and protection of human rights. No country is above scrutiny, nor should they be above accountability. We asked the High Commissioner what measures would she consider necessary for the Council to take in order to ensure justice for those affected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to the International Commission of Jurists.
Madam President, the ICJ concurs with the High Commissioner's finding that over-emphasis by the government of the Philippines on national security and public order has led to serious human rights violations. Such violations will only increase if the draft Anti-Terrorism Act is approved and implemented. The draft law would, for example, allow detention with a judicial warrant for up to 24 days. This is inconsistent with the prohibition of arbitrary detention under the ICCPR and the right of anyone arrested or detained on criminal grounds to be brought promptly before a judge. The Human Rights Committee has stressed that such judicial control of initial detention periods is not only essential to guarantee the right to liberty, but also to prevent torture, other ill treatment, and enforced disappearance. In line with both the High Commissioner's report and the 25th June 2020 statement by a large number of special procedures, the ICJ urges the government of the Philippines to accept the findings and recommendations and rapidly implement corrective measures in cooperation with the HCHR, civil society, and the Commission on Human Rights, and to abandon or fundamentally revise the draft anti-terror law. In the absence of clear, effective, and measurable progress on accountability at the national level, this Council must stand ready to establish an independent international investigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to de Federatie van Nederlandse Verenigingen tot de integratie van homoseksualiteit.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. My name is Kakay Pamara and I serve at Union Theological Seminary, Philippines, and I'm also the co-chair of the South Africa-based organization, JIN SOGI. I welcome the report of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on the current situation in the Philippines and call on this council to take action against the increasing and grave human rights violations that are taking place in the Philippines in the name of the restoration of public order. Under the banner of combating terrorism and the COVID-19 response, the government is openly waging a war against the most vulnerable, including the LGBTQI people and human rights defenders. Last Friday, Bahaghari, an LGBT organization, held a pride protest in Manila asking for the implementation of free, systematic COVID testing, the passage of the anti-discrimination bill, and the veto of the anti-terror bill, which will legalize state-sanctioned violence. The police, in violation of health protocols, arrested 20 human rights defenders. They are now detained in the Manila Police District. No cases have been filed as they did not violate any laws. We call on the HRC to help put an end to the human rights violations. Tomorrow, the anti-terrorism bill risks coming into law, which is in contrast with international human rights standards. Let us not remain complacent. Let us not forget why we are all united under this roof.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the International Federation for Human Rights Leagues.
President, FIDH welcomes the report released earlier this month by the High Commissioner on the serious and ongoing human rights violations in the Philippines. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the human rights situation in the country has further deteriorated. President Duterte's threat to issue shoot-to-kill instructions to deal with COVID-19 lockdown, quote-unquote, troublemakers, and to declare martial law-like virus crackdown are also troubling and reminiscent of Mr. Duterte's disastrous rhetoric in his so-called war on drugs. The assault on human rights defenders and government critics has intensified. The recent conviction of journalist Maria Ressa on politically motivated charges of cyber libel is illustrative of this trend. The proposed new anti-terror bill is also very likely to lead to more human rights violations and to further undermine the rule of law. Prison conditions remain another issue of concern. The country's jails remain among the world's most overcrowded, and many cases of COVID-19 infections have emerged among the prisoners. The government must heed the sensible and repeated calls for the release of certain prisoners to decongest jails as an urgent measure needed to prevent the spread of COVID-19. All these and other serious human rights violations continue to be committed amid pervasive impunity for the perpetrators. This is why we renew our call for the establishment of an independent investigation into the human rights violations in the Philippines during the current Council session. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to the Swiss Catholic Lenten Fund.
Madam President, Swiss Catholic Lenten Fund, Franciscans International, Association of Major Religious Superiors in the Philippines, and the Task Force Detainees of the Philippines welcome the report on the Philippine human rights situation released by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The HCHR has confirmed the systematic and widespread violations of human rights, especially the deprivation of the right to life that continued even amidst one of the most severe lockdowns imposed in any country. Even as I speak, Madam President, violations continue with arrests, extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, and torture. Over a 3-month period, Task Force Detainees of the Philippines monitored 153 human rights violations, ranging from cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment to extrajudicial killings. Human rights defenders have relentlessly been subjected to attacks online and offline. Recently, 2 prominent human rights defenders have been red-tagged by the state, Sister Marizen of the Benedictine Order and Mr. Ritzley Santos III, Executive Director of Balaod, Mindanao. The Philippine Alliance of Human Rights Advocates and Medical Action Group have also been tagged as part of the network of communist terrorists. These assaults on human rights and human rights defenders must come to an end. These killings must stop. We implore the Council to heed the recommendation of the OHCHR and establish a commission of inquiry. It will be a gigantic step forward in our common quest for accountability and justice. Thank you for this opportunity, Madam President.
Thank you very much. This was the last speaker we could accommodate for this dialogue. And so now we give the floor back to the speakers for their concluding remarks, starting with Mrs. Gomez-Dumpit.
Madam President, thank you, Your Excellencies. The response of our government before the Council, the issues and concerns raised on the floor will help us calibrate how we can move forward and offer our assistance to improve the human rights situation on the ground. On the CHR being included in the review panel headed by the Department of Justice, we note that this development and the CHR is ready to collaborate as we have always been. We urge that this measure be implemented within the technical cooperation framework offered by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. In addition, for this review to be credible, crucial in the overall response of government is to accept that the killings are widespread and systematic. It must also not confine the coverage of this review to exclude other victims of the anti-drug campaign and must look beyond government's own numbers. It must demonstrate full transparency and cooperation with independent mechanisms, including the Commission on Human Rights. We will count on the commitment of the Justice Secretary that diligence will be exercised to ensure that the accounting of each and every killing and other human rights violations arising from this drug war. We cannot overemphasize the obligation of the state in upholding the right to life, the appreciation of both the negative and positive duties to protect, promote, and prevent the arbitrary deprivation of life by security forces and private parties. We will monitor the development arising from this interactive dialogue as we look forward to follow-on engagements at home. We will also continue to report on the progress of measures in forthcoming sessions of the Council, as well as in the dialogues with UN treaty bodies, including the forthcoming UN Human Rights Committee in its review of the Philippines' implementation of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The Commission stands firm as we are empowered by the solidarity that we have witnessed here today. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much indeed. The next speaker is Mr. Santiago.
Madam President, Excellencies, thank you very much again. Buti pa ang mga may kapangyarihan napapakinggan, said Rosa. In English, it's good if you have power, you are listened to. This is the usual cry of the disempowered whenever they find themselves at the receiving end when the law is supposed to protect them as well. All they cry for is the equal protection of the laws and due process of law, rights that are actually guaranteed by the Philippine Constitution. We are here right now, not with the goal of pointing fingers, Rather, we are here to find solution to address institutional weaknesses mentioned before for the benefit of our people. Part of the constructive efforts and dialogue. Although the Philippines indeed did not support the resolution leading to this report, it however still engaged the OHCHR, although not allowing a country visit. We have heard of the concerns of the Philippine government. We have heard as well the documented challenges to human rights, which are widespread and systematic. My only hope is that this Human Rights Council agree to concrete measures beyond this report to move towards transparency and accountability. With this, I reiterate my earlier recommendation for an independent and transparent fact-finding mission that will help the Philippine government address impunity and exact accountability. More than 3 years have already passed. Thousands have been killed. These have been documented, even coming from the Philippine government itself. And yet, accountability has remained elusive. The Philippine government has shown its resolve to address the ills of Philippine society. It is not too much to ask that it further commit with the same political will in erasing any doubt from the minds of human rights victims that there is indeed a systematic approach to such violations. There simply must be transparency and accountability. I joined the High Commissioner for Human Rights in her call for the President of the Philippines to veto the anti-terrorism bill, more so that it can only exacerbate the already systematic violations that have been documented. I, together with many other civil society groups, look forward to working with the Philippine authorities to genuinely address human rights violations and exact accountability. Thank you once again, Excellencies, for your resolve to make international human rights mechanisms relevant to the lives of the people.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor back to His Excellency, Mr. Guevara. I'm sorry, but we can't hear you. Maybe you need to be unmuted. I'm sorry, we still can't hear you. Maybe Madam High Commissioner could start speaking and we can resolve the technical problem in the meantime.
I think we all believe that in a democracy we need people who can have the freedom of expression, who can defend human rights, and who can also, we have the freedom of press, among other freedoms. And one of the issues that we have been discussing here is the need to protect better human rights defenders, journalists, trade unionists, even lawyers who have been killed. And I think it's particularly dangerous when human rights defenders are slurred or labeled as terrorists or terrorist sympathizers or financiers. So I think the government needs to halt this kind of dangerous rhetoric. There is a need to ensure that the rights to freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly are respected and protected. Politically motivated charges as in human rights defenders are dropped and legal measures are taken to ensure their protection. So I take this opportunity to urge the government to ensure there are no reprisals against those persons and entities which have engaged with OHCHR for the present report. We also encourage the government to open and foster a dialogue with the civil society in order to build trust between the two sides. HCHR stands ready to assist in working with the Commission of Human Rights to help bridge the gap between civil society and state authorities. And this must begin with a genuine attempt of accountability for the killings of human rights defenders and by halting, as I said before, the harmful rhetoric against human rights defenders. In the case against Maria Ressa, Rappler, and ABCBN, we are following both cases closely and with concern, given the deep unease among journalists about freedom of expression in the Philippines. In the case of Maria Ressa, this is a case that gives rise to many concerns: the use of the cybercrime law, the 12 years prescription period for a libel offense, and fears that the case against her and Rappler are politically motivated and retaliation for their critical coverage of the president and government action. So I hope her appeal will be considered favorable. And I must also stress that under human rights standards, imprisonment is never an appropriate penalty for defamation. States should consider decriminalizing defamation. The other issue that I wanted to mention is that, of course, we're looking forward to continue in a collaborative way to technical cooperation with the government. We'll be exploring that in further months ahead. We have identified already, as I mentioned in my words, some areas that could be useful, but of course, this is something we need to explore with the government. In terms of the credibility of investigations, national and international, what I'm calling is for independent, impartial, effective, credible investigation. I have made a number, me and the Commissioner for the Human Rights Commission as well of the Philippines, have made a lot of important recommendations, including empowering a truly independent body to conduct investigations, improving the collection and the publishing of data on extrajudicial killings, and ensuring closer cooperation of law enforcement bodies with the Commission of Human Rights of the Philippines. And of course, the Philippines could seek international support in this, including from my office. And we hope, we have heard the Secretary of Justice announcement, and we hope that this report can serve also as a kickstart to kickstart the process that will begin to unblock the many obstacles in the system for accountability for serious human rights violations in the Philippines. The process described by the Secretary of Justice is hopefully a step in the right direction. We look forward to learning more detail, assisting if we can, and most importantly, monitoring closely to see if there are real and concrete results. It would be also important for the government to involve all the national human rights institutions and Philippine civil society fully in that process. And I think it's also important for the Human Rights Council to continue to monitor the situation and look for clear and measurable outcomes. Before I finish, just one message on drugs. And the key message is that drugs require a public health approach. Drug users are people with a health problem, they are not criminals. And you need to include not only a law enforcement approach, but a public health approach. And those countries who have done it, that they so have been much more successful in the fight against the drugs. Finally, our approach to this mandate has been a constructive one from the beginning, and we already thank the government, the Commission of Human Rights, and the Philippine civil society for the engagement throughout the process. And I hope that it has prompted some new steps forward on the part of the Philippines to address this issue through our recommendations. And I hope that it can open a new chapter of deeper cooperation and engagement between the Philippines, HCHR, and we'll be exploring this with the Justice Secretary and others in the coming week. I also would like to encourage the Philippines to re-engage and invite the special procedures, but I also call on the Human Rights Council to remain seized on developing the Philippines, to keep track of progress, and to continue to insist on accountability and an end to human rights violation. And my office is ready to cooperate, assist, and continue monitoring the situation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. We might try now whether we can get the connection with the Minister of Justice. I don't know whether that will work. I can hear some noises. I hope we'll be able to hear the Minister.
Excellencies, we are very sorry for that technical glitch. We're trying to fix it in a few seconds.
We can hear you, Minister, now.
All right, okay. Excellencies, the government exhaustively addressed specific cases in the Philippine Human Rights Situationer, which is an official document of this meeting. We encourage concerned delegations to consult this document. Certain so-called emblematic cases have been cited and selectively used to make hasty conclusions about the situation of civic space, press freedom, and judicial independence. There are self-contradictions in these kinds of argument. While the international community upholds the independence of the judiciary and welcomes the court's decisions on many cases, such as the conviction of 53 public officials involved in the Maguindanao massacre, it regrettably entertains allegations of the court's partiality on processes and decisions in specific cases. Logic should be consistent on the principle of the equal application of law, and in making judgments about the independence of the judiciary and the outcomes of judicial processes. We support and encourage discourse grounded on facts and a diligent assessment of the merits of each case. We should take great care against concluding that certain situations are systemic or cases emblematic. There should be no moral ambiguity in looking at efforts to strengthen anti-terrorism legislation, as it is the state's duty to address, within the bounds of law, all threats and challenges to the security and safety of our communities. The Terrorism Index has consistently ranked the Philippines among countries most impacted by terrorism. In the Philippine situation, where the option of righting every possible wrong evidently and vigorously exists, there is no reasonable basis to allege impunity or lack of accountability for human rights violations. We are heartened by the wide acknowledgement we heard today of our good governance agenda and national accountability efforts, as well as encouragement for constructive ways forward. This manifests the desire of the majority to support effective human rights mechanisms and a council that bases its discussions and actions on facts and promotes genuine dialogue with concerned countries. We underscore our resolve to strengthen our national efforts to safeguard our vast and robust civil society and media space, strengthen the administration of justice, and address all claims and allegations case by case in a transparent and inclusive manner. At the same time, we highlight our commitment to continue to contribute collective efforts aimed at enhancing and upholding the integrity and objectivity of the Council and its processes and mechanisms to ensure that its work leads only to transformative and enduring impact on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Unfortunately, now did work. So this brings us to the end of this interactive dialogue. I wish to thank all the presenters and everybody for their participation. And if this is okay, we can start briefly with the next interactive dialogue.
Mga kapatid, andyan pa ba kayo? Balik na po tayo sa ating
beer, tira ng beer.
Paki-open naman po ang inyong mga video para makita namin ang inyong mga kagandahan at kagwapuhan. Ginabi na tayo pero napakaganda ng talakayan, ano? Hihintayin din natin yung pagpasok ni Com Karen at saka ni Atty. RP. Ang ating mga, representative mismo sa UN, sa Human Rights Council. Marizen, maki-remind naman si si Com Karen.
Ayan na po siya.
Ay, andyan na? Wow!
Hello.
Yay! Papasok na rin si Atty. RP.
Live na ba tayo?
Oo, live na po tayo. Hindi tayo nag-stop.
Cheers.
Yung unang gusto magsalita. Nakahinga ka na, Karen, nakahinga ka na?
Sumakit yung aking leg.
Magre-log-in lang ako. Ayaw mo gumana ng camera ko. So,
ay, okay. Huwag ka muna magtatanggal ng perkana, ha? Para kitang-kita pa rin namin yung attire.
Nakatanggal na.
Ay, sayang.
Dali.
Okay, who wants to start?
What's your question?
Feelings.
Well, ako na lang siguro. Well, we're very happy, with the response of the secretary. But we must, katulad nga nung sinabi ko sa closing, these measures have been there all along. So what we need to see is about how this is going to be undertaken. Yung review, marami ng review, marami ng task force na nagawa. Pero there has always been this penchant, probably, this inclination to always narrow the scope of the review. And this is the thing that I wanted to convey to the Human Rights Council. Now, we're not only looking at the veneer of shall we say, response, but we have to look substantively behind it, no? First, what is the scope of that? It's good that there was a timeline. They said November. But the scope of it, what agencies will be involved, and then the level of cooperation that we will have. Because, like, for instance, yung AO 35, we were just observers there, no? But even AO 35 confines the coverage of the review. In this case, we said na you cannot just confine it to the real numbers of the government because alam natin na may andaming namamatay outside of that. That's why the figures have varied from 6,000 of official conservative estimates to actually as high as 32,000. So where are we there? So ang importante, kung may report, kailangan i-include din doon. I think that's the message that I wanted to convey, no? And in this review, there must be a recognition that the killings are widespread and systematic. Now, if the review is sincere enough, I think the findings of the review will show if the review is actually transparent and it will have full cooperation, we will have full participation as CHR, and if this is made within the technical cooperation framework that the OHCHR is actually offering, then it lends more credibility to this exercise. Yun lang ang gusto kong sabihin muna.
Thank you po. At ang ganda talaga ng initial yung statement plus yung response is very appropriate. Attorney RP, okay ka na? Yes. Wala na yung Amerikana. Anong masasabi mo po? Feelings?
All na tayo. Sa lahat, magandang gabi sa lahat ng nanonood at tagapakinig. Yung naging mensahe ko lang doon ay dalawa yung main message gusto kong paabot doon sa council. Yung una ay siguro yung well-documented lahat ng mga nangyayari. Merong report yung Philippine government, yung sinasabi ni Secretary Guevara, na sinumite, 100 plus pages, maraming naka-access naman rin nito sa hanay natin. Pero hindi complete pinapakita. Yung nila, pero hindi kompleto na ang nangyayari kapag mayroong violations. Itong mga na report at na document na violations, hindi papakita kung paano na nagkaroon ng justisya para din. So yung human rights report ng High Commissioner for Human Rights tungkol sa Pilipinas, kinukumpleto niya yung picture, diba? So, yung mensahe, maganda yung report ng Philippine government, nangyayari yung human rights violations. At sabi nga ng Commissioner for Human Rights ay ito ay widespread and systematic document. Yung pangalawang mensahe na gusto kong ipaabot doon ay marami pa rin doon sa mga hanay natin na bagamat lumalaban at sumisigaw tayo, we are willing to engage kung talaga merong genuine effort, no? At alam natin na pag sinabi ng gobyerno, napalaki na gobyerno, meron tayong mga alay. Yung mga allies natin ay limitado ng mga nasa kapangyarihan din, diba? So, yung mensahe doon ay kung meron genuine effort from the side of the government to really look into issues of accountability and to stem yung human rights violation, put a stop to it, many of us from civil society groups would definitely be willing to engage in that process. Salamat po.
Naka-mute ka, Rose. Naka-mute ka.
Paki-open naman po yung inyong mga video para makita ang ating mga discussants. Kasama na rin natin ngayon pala si Attorney Tom Temprosa, ang Director ng Promotions Office ng Commission on Human Rights. No? Sige, napakaganda ng mga Siyempre, tuwan-tuwa kami dahil naisama ni Attorney RP yung HRD Protection Bill na hindi kasama dun sa actual recommendation ng Office of High Commissioner, pero halos lahat, no?
Maraming Rose.
Ano po?
Maraming salamat sa inyo kasi tinanong ko rin kayo kung ano ba ang dapat nating ipaabot. Ayan, sa inyo yan.
Okay, salamat. Sige. Sino pong gusto pang magkaroon ng reaction, magbigay ng insights sa nangyari? Si Judy?
Oo. De una, buti na lang naranasan ni Guevara how it is to be silenced even for a few minutes. Pero hindi naman kasi ko nag-attend ng mga UN meetings. So, having seen this and witnessed this, it was a bit emotional. Madrama lang talaga ako. Pero it was a bit emotional to hear countries, representatives talking about yung situation natin. Kasi, Diyos ko, no, di ba parang ilan na yung efforts to silence us and ang laki lang nung encouragement to hear countries supporting, recognizing that may widespread, large-scale, systematic killing. At hindi lang sa atin nanggagaling, may recognition ng iba't ibang mga bansa. So, and for those who stood up, well, not literally, but those who said they support the report, ramdam na ramdam mo yung solidarity. So, that's a big encouragement for us. But then, of course, you have Belarus and Cuba, no, na waste of time, waste of resources. Cuba was saying, dapat sa ibang bagay na natin pagtuunan kaysa ito. And then you have ASEAN also talking about constructive dialogue. Ang laki lang talaga pa rin pala ng gawain natin. Kahit anong dokumentasyon na, iba na nagsasabi, iba talaga yung real politics pagdating sa ganyan. So malaki yung hihingin sa ating trabaho at malaki rin yung people-to-people solidarity na kailangan natin i-forge. Of course, yung ASEAN countries kept talking about, we recognize the openness and the transparency of our government. Kaya buti sinabi nung taga-Liechtenstein na the withdrawal of the Philippine government from the Rome Statute, yun yung nagre-reflect ng insincerity niya. Kasi, di ba, very clear na ayaw niyang magpagalaw, ayaw niyang magpasilit. So, ang sa akin, tas yung isa pang takeaway ko sa closing remarks ni Madam Bachelet, na ang war on drugs is a public health
issue. And so, kailangan yakapin talaga natin yung gano'n na may ganito pa rin talaga nagsasabi na it's a public health issue. And that's the same with COVID-19. No? It's a public health issue. And the militarist response is in no way going to resolve a public health issue. So sa akin, ang dalawang challenges na nakita ko for iDEFEND ay ang dami ring nagsasabi dun sa mga ASEAN and other countries which supported the Philippine government ay okay naman kasi yung ESCR nila. Kailangan natin basagin yun. Hindi yan totoo. Anong numero ang hinaharap nyo? Ito yung mga mukha ng kahirapan. Mukha ng kagutuman. Lalo COVID na.
Hello, Judy. Nag-stop na ikaw. Tawagin muna natin si Jaybee para makabalik si Judy. Jaybee?
Sige. Salamat, Ms. Rosso. Balik si Judy. Mamaya, I think, meron pa din sasabihin. Ang quick reaction ko, 3 points. First, salamat sa ating mga speakers, kay Karen, kay Atty. RP, and then the rest of the civil society speakers who made that intervention. I think we're clear. We were able to deliver our major points doon sa interactive dialogue na yun. In those kinds of interactive dialogue, I think yun yung pinakamahalagang bagay na na-register natin at napakinggan tayo nung other side. And this other side, I mean, si Secretary Guevara dito at yung Philippine mission doon sa Geneva. That, I think, is the most important contribution nitong ating ginawa ngayon. That delivery of the message was clear, and we made an impression that this is coming from a very broad section of Philippine society. Of course, all that data information is very substantial and helpful. Number 2, yung nakita natin na parang ang laki ng support sa Philippine government position. Ako i-credit ko lang yun doon sa ability ng mission natin sa Geneva to be able to regularly and consistently brief yung mga partners nila doon. Ay, nasa disadvantage kasi tayo eh. Wala tayong tao doon. And I think Forum Asia is also constrained. And I know some of our partners in Geneva are also constrained na hindi natin nagagawa yung ating normal and regular na lobbying and advocacy mission a few weeks before these kinds of interventions. So sa akin, medyo limitado tayo, kaya mukhang dumami yung supporter ng ibang bansa doon sa Philippine position. To me, yun ay reflection lang na medyo lamang sa atin yung Philippine mission. I noticed, sinabi, may sinirculate na paper a few hours before that actual interactive dialogue. I would assume may mga talking points doon na ni-request na sa bawat isa na nagsasalita doon. So that's the kind of lobbying na meron yung Philippine mission. And I would suspect ganun sila ka-nervyos doon sa mga sasabihin ng mga supporters natin at ng ating mga interventions which force them to really make sure na may magsasalita para sa Philippine position. But ako, ganun lang ang tingin ko doon. Mas maraming oras yung Philippine mission doon, nakagawa sila ng kanilang briefing paper, and a few hours before this meeting, naka-last minute na clinch sila ng mga supporters nila. But I think yung pinakamahalaga dito is meron tayong babalikan doon sa November. And for me, this was very useful and helpful to us in putting more pressure back here. Iba kasi yung laro nila doon sa Geneva eh. Kanya-kanyang mga laro yan. At who knows kung ano ang mga give and take ng mga missions natin na nag-uusap-usap na sa Geneva. Pero ang importante na abot natin ngayon na pressure at naipakita natin dito kay Secretary Guevara, and I'm pretty sure pag-aaralan nila paano nila sasagutin ngayon at paano nila didiskartihan yung mga arguments natin against the anti-terror bill, which I think is the important handle natin ngayon. I think we have been able to project that discontent and that dissent against the anti-terror bill. Totally a new ball game, pero palagay ko yun yung malaking contribution nitong interactive dialogue right now.
Sige, salamat JB. Tawagin natin si Marizen, tapos si Attorney Tom and Attorney Gemma. Marizen?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Rose. It's just a brief comment, adding on to Ms. Judy and Sir Jaybee's intervention. Similar observations, but we're also discussing in another group. The usual words that have come up during the ID, it's their accountability measures, whether domestic or international, technical cooperation, and then open dialogue. So that's something that we can continue working on with the government and also the OHCHR following this report. Like what we have said before, the ID, what's next after the delivery of the report. And also, yes, there might be some advantage with the Geneva-based missions, but I think if we also look at the previous votes and statements of these countries, their stance are quite similar. So we have heard the interventions of Nicaragua, Cuba, Azerbaijan, Cambodia to some extent, that they're saying country-specific resolutions are counterproductive. But then in the past, they have said probably the same comments in their interventions. But for ASEAN countries, the countries aligned with the ASEAN statement, which Vietnam delivered first. But if we read between the lines, they're emphasizing technical cooperation. So there's support there. In perhaps we can capitalize on that, on the accountability mechanism. So impartial, independent, domestic, and international investigative accountability mechanism.
Salamat Marizen, gusto ko lang magdagdag ng konti. JB, ito sa binanggit mo. Naalala ko nung naglalabi tayo para doon pa lang sa resolution ng Iceland, ha? Halos pare-pareho nga yung sinasabi nila. Almost all these countries, no, when we talk to them, yung ASEAN, Central America, at saka Middle East, palaging non-committal yan. Habang kausap mo, okay, we will discuss, we will think about that. Pero eventually, lalabas ang posisyon nila because they are actually afraid to be like the Philippines, na maisalang yung kanilang kalagayan, yung human rights situation nila sa Pilipinas. Yung mga sinasabi nilang country-specific, no? Yung usapin ng non-interference, non-intervention. Kaya, ano pa rin, yun pa rin yung trend noong mga sagot nitong mga bansa na ito.
Yeah, quick to add, Ms. Rose, we acknowledge the statements of Kuwait and Thailand for recognizing the role of NHRIs. So, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yes, sige. Si Attorney Tom, then Attorney Jem.
Hi, Ms. Rose. Good afternoon. Hi. Good evening na po pala.
Opo, Attorney Tom, paki-open naman ng iyong video. Thank you.
Ayan, sorry, I'm not camera ready. Tinawag lang ako ni Marizen for this. But first of all, I want to congratulate Commissioner Karen, of course, for standing up for us. Salamat, Karen. Put up a very good showing for all human rights defenders, and also Attorney RP, congrats. Salamat sa sa napakagandang message mo, you inserted human rights defenders at the end. Siguro I just want to siguro parang these are our few thoughts, no. Tama kayo dun, ma'am. For me, itong lahat ng to was human rights diplomacy 101, no. Balik tayo doon sa we can go back to the main lessons of human rights diplomacy number one, no one is really against human rights. No one really said that we should not follow human rights standards, that we should not protect and promote human rights. Um, Everybody was supportive of human rights, the principles of human rights, and I think that's really
Attorney Tom,
one.
Sige po.
Hello.
Sige po, okay lang. Please
I
continue.
think i-off ko na lang po yung camera, mahina po yung internet.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's really one thing that stands out. No one is really against human rights. But secondly, ito na naman yung always the tension between sovereignty, non-interference, and probably the question is, how should we protect and promote human rights? Are we okay with international mechanisms coming in to the state? Are we fine with UN bodies making inquiries into domestic states? So yung pa rin po yung forever tension that we see here. But if there's one thing, the third lesson that I want to draw here is, if there's one thing that we see, a bright spot amid all of this, is concerted action really brings action from the government. So I think that Secretary Guevara was very sincere in his statement that there will be a process, there will be a process for a redress, a process for remedying violations. I think this process will have not been possible, or will have been not this forthcoming if not for this dialogue. So I think yung pa rin po yung we should press on, we should call accountability to governments. But the larger question that I just want to bring forward, one thing that we all should really be concerned about is, these are all human rights diplomacy talk. How will this redound to the benefit of the ordinary Filipino? Diba? That's one thing that we should really be thinking about. And probably as Secretary Guevara, my former professor and colleague in Ateneo, will embark on this investigation, I do believe that, I hope his sincerity will go a long way, and I hope this will really redound to the benefit of the ordinary Filipino. Kasi naman, ang ginagawa naman natin dito is para sa mga biktima ng human rights violations. I think, yun naman ang importante. I hope talaga, I sincerely hope that this will really create a benefit or be able to remedy human rights violations.
Sige.
Yun po.
Salamat, Attorney Tom. Yes, paano ita-translate yung all the diplomacy within UN, yung iba ay very strongly worded.
Yes.
Kanilang resolution naman, yung iba naman ay malamya, yung iba naman ay questionable. Pero we will see eventually. Attorney Gemma and then Attorney Rootbeer. Attorney Gem.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, maraming salamat. Una, I will reiterate yung mga messages na nasabi na actually I am very thankful nasabi lahat ni Com Karen at ni Attorney RP yung ating stand with respect to the human rights situation sa Philippines. And maganda yung mga messages na nasabi nila, very relevant. Siguro important to take note na apparently based on the recommendations also of the member states, nandoon yung constructive cooperation, non-intervention, but this is to some extent parang predictable in a sense na yun talaga, katulad nga ng sabi nyo, Ms. Rose, yun ganon sila magsalita at the beginning. They will protect their own interest also. These countries will also protect their own interest. They don't want to be put in the same situation as the Philippines is now. So medyo ganon. Pero coming to looking at the parang silver lining of all this, we have put the government to parang spotlight in respect to its response to our concerns. So kung walang ganitong klaseng mechanism, walang makikinig sa atin. They will not be mindful at all of the violations that we have raised before them. So what we should do, I think, moving forward is we continue to be vigilant. So kung ano yung mga promises that they have given through Secretary Guevara, we should put them to account. We should make them know that we don't stop the ball at the Human Rights Council. So dapat we take note of all the stated actions that they will take, and we should be able to engage them still. So yun po yung maganda doon sa mechanism na nangyaring ganito. And sana tuloy-tuloy lang. Ako, I'm a fair believer of positivity. I would like to think na kahit ganito yung sitwasyon natin na parang lalong nag-worsen ng human rights situation, we would still engage the government because in the end, sila pa rin talaga ho ang ating duty bearer. So kahit anong gawin natin, we should always engage and expect them to do their part. So yun po. Yun lang po. Salamat.
Okay, thank you, Atty. Gemma. Pero syempre, meron din tayong responsibilidad na pumili ng tamang mga leaders. At kung hindi na umuubra, election tayo by 2022. Okay.
Bumoto ng maayos.
Okay, bumoto ng maayos. Atty. Rootbeer? Yan. Sige po. Nakamute ka yata, attorney.
Hello again.
Yes.
Ayun. Ulitin ko lang po, congrats po kay Com Karen, kay Atty. RP, tsaka sa lahat po na nakapagsalita. Ako po, these are just thoughts. I was quite sad that some of the countries claimed that the HCHR report was based on unverified information. It's so in line with the Philippines messaging, that it has always framed na exaggerated or false yung narrative coming from human rights defenders. The country representatives, they did not even consider na yung numbers mentioned in the report actually came from government sources. So I would just like to point out that, again, like what Sir Jaybee and some of our colleagues have mentioned, kailangan natin i-double yung efforts natin sa lobbying. We have to come up with a strategy on how we can convince these people kasi importante yung votes nila dun sa susunod na session kung yung susunod. So it's important to convince them to listen to us and not disregard the report as useless or baseless or unverified. And also siguro kailangan mas visible, mas makita nila na we're trying to cooperate with the Philippine government. So yun lang po. Thank you.
Okay, salamat po. Sino po yung gusto magsalita? Attorney Tom, magsasalita ka ulit. You want to say something? At si Com Karen muna, Attorney Tom. Com Karen.
Just to say, what I said in our statement were just immediate steps. Kaya din hindi ko in-include yung Human Rights Defenders Bill because that one still requires a lot of medium term yun eh. That's why I said it's short and medium term. What we enumerated in our statement are actually things that can be done now. So if the government wants to show its sincerity and wants to show its efforts that are credible, then they can do that now. So yun yung mga listahan na nandun. And then the rest, we can program it, no? Ipa-program yan in terms. Of course, we want rights defenders to be there, no? But ang problema ngayon, naantala kasi yun eh. It will take a little bit more time. But the listing actually represents what it can do now. Yun lang ang gusto kong i-emphasize. And also, they did say that there was a timeline on the review panel, and this is in November, but we will see how it goes because, as I said, we need to look at the scope, we need to look at the numbers that they will work with, and then we need to actually urge them to invite the HCHR to come in so that they can provide technical cooperation for us.
Salamat po. Meron pang gustong magsalita? Father Toots?
Yes!
Yes, ang gwapo ni Father Toots!
Okay, katatapos ko lang magmisa, so
Salamat
I
po.
prayed for you all. So
Pinagdasal mo kami, Father.
Oo naman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you kay Commissioner Karen at saka kay Attorney RP at sa lahat. Ako, natutuwa ako, ang feeling ko ngayon natutuwa ako kasi at least yung narinig natin yung iba't ibang opinion ng mga bansa at alam natin kung ano ang mga position nila, ang support ng European Union at saka yung ibang bansa at saka alam din natin kung ang mga positions nila at saka yung mga NGO representatives. Siguro ang hamon para sa atin, constructive dialogue. Okay, open naman talaga tayo dyan. Tapos yung sabi ni Commissioner Karen, yung naabutan ko ngayon, na ano yung mga kagyat, ano yung pinaka-immediate, at saka ano yung mga medium term. Nasabi na natin ang gusto natin sabihin, siguro, huwag maging kampante, maging vigilant pa rin tayo, tuloy yung documentation natin ng mga human rights violations, para meron scientific naman yung ating ginagawa talaga, hindi lang based sa ganito, sa ganyan. So, kaya sana, pinakinggan ng Human Rights Council yung recommendations ng Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights na talagang maging bukas ang gobyerno, tutulong, ang ganda we are willing to assist the government sa mga mechanism. Sana i-welcome din ang office at saka kung fact-finding mission mayan o committee on inquiry or whatever or yung ground level investigation. Ang CSO naman at saka human rights communities, open naman tayo dyan Sana si Secretary Guevara ay talagang seryoso naman siya sa kanyang statement. So sana positive, bakit naman hindi, pero let's be vigilant also. So congratulations at thank you sa ating lahat at sa lahat ng mga international partners natin na nagtataguyod ng human rights. Salamat po.
Salamat, Father. Meron pa po bang gustong magsalita? Joy, any insights? Ay, sorry, si RP pala. Attorney RP ulit. Please.
Sige. RP lang po. Yung siguro dalawa yung gusto kong i-point out na na-mention kanina tapos i-share ko lang rin. Yung isang na-mention ay nasabi na merong isang parang magiging committee na i-head yung Secretary of Justice, no? And i-share ko lang to kasi ka-meeting rin yung DOJ recently without giving any details, no? Pero excited rin yung DOJ kasi magkakaroon daw aside from the EO35 and alam natin ang reklamo ng marami sa EO35 nagkaka-disagreement dun sa ano ba ang coverage. Definitely ayaw i-cover yung drug-related cases. Pero ang isang development ay magkakaroon ng isang technical working group daw o isang task force particularly on drug-related cases. At sabi nung mga kausap namin dun sa DOJ, ang plano nila ay sana mabigyang lakas yung mga civil society groups and even human rights victims dahil nga ang problem ay walang masyadong investigation or walang investigation talaga na ginagawa yung sa law enforcement. Hopefully this will spur investigations at magkaroon ng lakas ng loob na mag-file ng mga cases against those perpetrators of excesses. Yung pangalawa ay gusto nilang magkaroon ng isang human rights summit na mention din kanina yon. Hindi ko alam kung napansin din. Pero minention dun sa meeting even last week. So ito again, depende sa outlook rin natin, depende dun sa siguro, di ba, the devil is in the details. Pero these are siguro opportunities na hindi magkakaroon siguro ng ganitong oportunidad kung hindi dahil sa constant engagement ng marami sa mga ating human rights workers. So, pasalamat ako sa lahat ng mga nandito, no, dun sa nagpupursige na itong mga ganitong possibilities ay magkakaroon ng ganito nga. Salamat po.
Salamat, Attorney RP, dun sa napaka-importante mong punto, no? Ever since nag-engage tayo sa kanila, actually, sila yung humintong engagement sa atin. Doon po sa AO35, ito po yung Interagency Committee to investigate yung EJK enforces appearance, torture, and other human rights violations. Ka-engage po natin yan dati, di ba? Karen, kasama tayo dyan. At ang focus talaga niyan ay para sa mga human rights defenders at mga political activists. Mapabilis yung mga investigasyon. Ang una pong listahan niyan ay from 2001 to 2010. Tapos in-expand na nila. Tapos later nawala na tayo sa picture, hindi na tayo nakokonsulta. Kaya maganda yung sinabi ni RP, sana matuloy yun, no? Bigyan nila tayo ng kumbaga, wag tayong itag agad. Hindi naman dapat kung hindi kasama tayo sa pakikipagdialogo sa kanila. Si Attorney Tom, tapos si Judy. Attorney Tom.
Hello, ma'am. I just want to add, ma'am, a few words po about what Commissioner Karen said. I just want to stress probably the fact na the killings, kasi one thing that I think struck me the most was the numbers. So the Secretary of Justice said that there are more than 5,000, if I'm not mistaken, 500 police operations where there were killings. I do not know if this translates to the actual cases or the actual numbers killed. But what we can see is the investigation has been limited to that pool of cases. Probably just to stress what the Commission has said earlier and time and again, we should investigate all. The keyword is all killings. So all killings in line with the drug war of the administration. Kasi I think that's the only way we can truly address impunity. So we should not be selective in making sure that justice is served, no? So yun po yung aking doon. Just a comment on that. So I hope that Secretary Guevara will probably my former professor will probably try to expand the scope if possible. The other one po na nakikita ko, yung sinasabi namin ni Attorney RP, gusto ko lang din susugan, the devil is in the details, and that's very true. In this case, one thing that I want to just emphasize is that the Department of Justice is quite distinct from the PNP. Although they are part of the law enforcement apparatus of government, when it comes to the reporting lines, medyo separate. So if there's an establishment of a review committee or mechanism, ang aking plea is that the mechanism should be able to hurdle the natural lines between and among government agencies. What I'm saying is, for example, the PNP does not really directly report to the DOJ secretary. So a circular, for example, or an order from the DOJ secretary might have to hurdle reporting lines that can go to the PNP. So what I'm saying is probably the devil is in the details. Yung paggawa po ng ating mechanism, it should be a mechanism coming from the Office of the President so that it can compel all agencies of government to really cooperate with the investigation. So for example, kasi PNP can really report to the NAPOLCOM or the DILG, but not really to the DOJ. So yun po yung ating just an observation. So if it will be a task force, I hope that it can be able to draw the lines or transcend the lines between the bureaucracy. So kasi yun po yung ating matagal na napanawagan na para ma-compel o makuha po lahat ng ebidensya from the proper authorities. So, yun lang po yung dadagdag ko po. Salamat po.
Okay. Salamat, Atty. Tom. Sana ganun nga po ang mangyari. We will hope on that. Judy?
So, napasadahan natin yung report din naman. So, ulit, moving forward, dapat mas i-unpack natin yung laman ng reports. Una, nung nag-opening tayo kanina, mas kailangan natin i-highlight din yung sitwasyon ng kababaihan sa usapin ng war on drugs. At doon tayo makakatulong. Marami tayong mga organisasyon na nangalap ng datos at pwede natin yun i-contribute ulit. Ang ikalawa, i-highlight natin yung sinabi ng Iceland na sabi niya, systematic, overwhelming, pero yung isang ginamit niya ay ongoing extrajudicial killings. Kasi hindi naman natapos nung nag-submit na tayo ng report. Patuloy yung mga extrajudicial killings. At ang isang hindi masyadong na-highlight kasi at trabaho natin ito ay yung corporate led killings. Hindi naman to lahat state killings. Marami dyan ay corporate led killings or the state in connivance with corporations. So mahalagang ma-highlight ang accountability ng mga korporasyon. Yung pagtukoy nga sa indigenous peoples dun sa report, parang ang kuha ko, pero basahin ko ulit, pero ang kuha ko parang target, naiipit sila sa banggaan ng NPA at ng Estado, ng ibang armed groups at saka ng Estado. Pero sa ibang pagkakataon, oo, pero marami ring pagkakataon na sila ay target because they are active defenders of their ancestral domains and they are active defenders of our natural resources. And so they are being targeted primarily by corporate interests. So mahalagang ma-highlight yun kasi bahagi rin ng ating rekomendasyon ay magtulak ng process na towards a legally binding treaty that would ensure corporate accountability. So yun, mahaba pa rin yung gagawin natin. At masaya ako na pinag-uusapan natin ko at sana pag-usapan pa natin sa mga darating na panahon.
Salamat, Judy. Joy, meron ka bang last words? Joy?
Ano lang po, very quickly, I guess, just to emphasize na yung work natin is very much ongoing. It's really important for us from now and up to at least the next session to keep documenting these human rights violations and yung ginagawa rin ng gobyerno versus what they've mentioned today. Kasi if there's no resolution this session, then we'll still keep pushing for that next session. And congrats also to Attorney RP, Father Toots, Com Karen, and everyone. Thanks.
Medyo magla-last words na po tayo at overtime na tayo. Buti nag-hold on pa itong ating YouTube at Facebook streaming. Isa po siguro sa importanteng lumabas din doon sa discussion, yung openness ng mga bansa. Sila ang nagtatanong sa Office of High Commissioner, ano ba ang dapat gawin para ma-strengthen yung ating mga domestic mechanism for justice and for accountability. Paano dapat mag-engage palalo ang mga government at ang NGO, mga civil society organizations para hindi tayo natatag or hindi tayo nabivilify. Kasi alam naman ng lahat na ang mga NGOs po, ang mga HRDs po, ay kasama yan sa development. Hindi kami kaaway ng pamahalaan. Napakalaki din ng premium na ibinigay ng international community doon sa usapin ng freedom of expression, freedom of the press, kasi alam nila, ito yung, anong tinatawag natin dyan? Fifth state, na yan ang magbibigay talaga ng kaalaman, ng katotohanan, para lahat ng mga tao ay well-informed. So, hindi nga po natatapos ngayong araw na ito na narinig natin ang laman ng report. Matagal pa po ang ating kailangang pagpupursige para matiyak na ang magiging resolusyon ng Human Rights Council dito sa report sa Pilipinas ay magiging tama, magiging magiging fair at merong hustisya at accountability doon sa lahat ng mga nangyaring mga violations. Pero kami po sa iDEFEND, sa PARA, syempre siguro pati sa Commission on Human Rights ay open for engagement. Ayaw ho namin na kami ay tinutugis palagi. Nakakapagod po, nakaka-stress, nakakakonsumi. Alalahanin nyo, kami po ay open na makipag-usap, makipagtulungan, pero syempre dapat patas, no, ang ating kalagayan sa pakikipag-usap at sa pagdadayalogo. Mahaba pa po ang ating gagawin. Kailangan po tayong mag-come up ng mga rekomendasyon sa mga states, sa Human Rights Council members, sa Office of High Commissioner, at magbigay ng ating pagtingin kung paano gagawin. Ano ang tamang magiging resolution. Posible pong hindi pa ngayon mangyari yan, ngayong 44th session na matatapos po ng July 21, no? Posible pong sa 45th session pa ito magkaroon ng resolution. Pero nandiyan po kami, handang tumulong, handang tiyakin na ang lahat ng karapatan ng bawat Pilipino ay ma-promote, maprotektahan, at marespeto. So magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Salamat sa inyong matyagang pakikinig, pag-aaral na kasama kami. Tuloy-tuloy pa po ang ating magiging discussion, pag-aaral sa karapatang pantao. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat at thank you, salamat po sa lahat ng aming mga guest participants, ng aming mga nag-represent, no, sa Human Rights Council. Thank you. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Salamat po.
Salamat din. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Salamat po sa lahat.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Salamat.
Thank you po.
Congrats sa lahat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Ingat. Thank you, Miss Rose.
Thank you po.